Hi everyone, this is for my fellow international medical students or international medical graduates. Okay, this is who this life is for. So settle in if you're an IMG, if you are in a Caribbean medical school, or if you are a student of a non-US medical school, and or if you are in the US and have ambitions of pursuing residency, or if you are a physician in practice from anywhere in the world and you're looking at transitioning to the United States, this life is for you, okay? This life is for you.
Okay, Alfredo, you're already like a super IMG at this point, but you're here. Welcome. A petty popcorn, um, Manda, Busola, Brown Tosin, Tony Apopo, I think that is the right way to say her name. Um, Love Irene. Okay. So I have IMG Roadmap in the room with me. IMG Roadmap, I'm sure that I'm probably gonna just minimize you. Can we make you maybe a guest? If you don't mind, IMG Roadmap, we're gonna demote you to a guest so that you can help us in the chat. Okay. How do I do that? Here we go. So tonight we're gonna be speaking about, actually, today's the first of my 5-day challenge. So my 5-day challenge is for anyone who is an international medical student or graduate seeking United States residency. Okay, that's who this is for. Now that we've settled that, I'm going to go through the 5 things we'll be talking about over the next 5 days because this is so important. I need you to be here every evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you're watching the replay, I got you. We're going to keep this on my page here at Dr. Nina Loom, and we're also going to have it reposted on the IMG Roadmaps page so that you can join us, okay? Now, day 1, we're going to talk about the reality check. Today is all about the reality check. We're going to be understanding the journey to United States residency as an international medical graduate. All right, are you excited for that? By the way, let me know where you're joining in from. Type in the chat, let me know where you're joining in from, and let me know what level of IMG you are. Are you a student? Are you a graduate? Are you a physician in practice? Are you doing research somewhere? Let me know. I would like to wave to you, but I want to acknowledge who is in the room so I can make sure that the information I give you is valuable. Alfredo is in the chat over here, but he already matched. The couples matched, actually. So congrats to you. And he's someone that I did interview coaching with. That was last year, 2 years ago, Alfredo. Can you remind me? I should be calling you Dr. Perez, okay? Remind me if that was last year or 2 years ago. We did interview coaching together, and he couples matched in Miami, Florida. So I'm happy to see him here today. Hi. If you're calling in, just let me know where you're calling in from, okay? I need to know where you're calling from. So tonight is day 1, and we're going to be speaking about the reality check, understanding the IMG journey in the USA. Day 2, which is Tuesday, we'll be speaking about the great equalizer. Who wants to guess what the great equalizer is? The great equalizer, can somebody take a guess in the chat? The great equalizer is the USMLE. And I'm bringing that first and foremost because if we don't speak about that, we're not going to move forward, okay? The first thing is the great equalizer. So we're going to be demystifying the USMLE, and I'll be letting you know how you can stay competitive with the USMLE. Now, for those of you who've already done step 1 or step 2, don't worry. You have step 3 to knock it out. You have step 3 to implement what you're going to learn from me today, okay? Day 3, which is Wednesday, we'll be speaking about USCE, research and networking. You want to be here for that one, okay? Many of you have questions. How do I get USCE, blah, blah, blah. Come to day 3. Actually, don't miss any day, okay? Do yourself a favor. Don't miss any of the days. Day 4, we'll talk about match strategy, and we'll speak a little bit about interview. But as you know, interview is the last thing at the very end of the trail. But as Dr. Perez is telling us here, yeah, he did couples match. In PEDS, she went into PEDS, he went into IM. And yep, from Miami. I remember everyone I coach, like, believe it or not, I do. So yes. And day 5 will be our final day. It's a surprise. Day 5 is a surprise. So Friday night, I know it's Friday night. Most of you are out like in the town, jamming it. But come to Friday night and we'll I have a big surprise for you at the very end. So my life is obviously free. Come joining, grab a cup of water or tea. I got my water here. So let's get right into day one, the reality check. Now, the reason I talk about this first is because I am an IMG just like you, okay? I am originally from Cameroon, that's in West Africa. I lived in Cameroon my whole life. I left Cameroon, I believe I was about 19 or 20. I finished my university. I didn't finish my university, actually. I transferred from my home country, pre-medicine, I was studying microbiology. I transferred into the Caribbean for pre-medicine. I had no concept of the United States medical system at the time, zero. And thus, I had no information about what I needed to be doing right in the very beginning as a student in a foreign medical school that would have positioned me for quicker success, less stress, less challenges, okay? Because this whole topic, this 5-day challenge is about overcoming IMG challenges, what you can do to make your pathway a lot easier, okay? So when I left Cameroon, I went over to the Caribbean. I did the pre-med track at a Caribbean medical school. And for those of you who are Caribbean medical schools, how many of you are in Caribbean medical schools right now? Let me know. If you're in a Caribbean medical school, just drop in the chat that you are or where you are. I see one, Busoles from Nigeria, IMG from Jamaica. I see somebody else from Canada. So thanks for letting me know where you're joining in from. So when I left Cameroon, I went to the islands. At that time, did not really know what I was doing. I was so young and naive and frankly ignorant, okay? But here we are. And for those of you who don't know who I am right now, I should probably introduce myself, right? I'm Dr. Nina Loom. I am a previous IMG, meaning I was just like you, okay? I dealt with self-doubt. I dealt with imposter syndrome. I dealt with no plan B, okay? This was the only thing. It was doctor or doctor, okay? You know, from the time I was a little girl, this is what I was gonna do. I am currently board certified in family medicine and in emergency medicine. So I'm double board certified, okay? Double board certified in the house. And I currently live in Cleveland, Ohio, which is a very IMG friendly area or state, Ohio as in general. And I currently practice in inpatient medicine as a hospitalist, and I do part-time work in the emergency room when I have the time. So in my journey as a J1, I was a J1 applicant, meaning I was always on a visa here. I started out on an F1 visa. I came into the United States from the Caribbean, as I mentioned, as a foreign medical person. I came in to do Kaplan. The Kaplan review was a 6-week program in Atlanta. They put you up in a hotel. I remember scrapping for money from all sources, like from my family, my mom. She sent me about like all of the $5,000, to be honest. I booked the course. It was 6 weeks. At that time, you would stay in a hotel, so you had to pay for your hotel, and they'll teach you like a USMLE review course over a 6-week period. So that's how I came to the United States. It was an F1 visa, and I was in the Caribbean. So I was in the Caribbean island of Curacao. So I had to travel to Venezuela, to the United States Embassy there, get a visa, come here, and do the USMLE preparation. And even after all that, back then when I took the exam, this was step 1, the score was a pass. It wasn't a pass fail like it is now. It was a numerical score, and it was based on a percentile. So if you wanted to be competitive for residency, you had to score what is the equivalent of like 240 right now, which would have been greater than the 99th percentile for everybody that took the test with you at the same time. So when I took the test at that time, I scored in the 89th percentile, which means I did okay. However, in that setting, it wasn't as competitive as doing or scoring in the 99th percentile. So it's just like maybe scoring a 210 right now when you have your colleagues scoring a 240, 250, 260. You get my point. So because of that differential, I already started to feel less than. I already started to feel like I was behind. I felt like I didn't have a chance. I'm a visa applicant. Here I am without a 240. Here I am without a big master plan of like how I'm going to wow people with a great score. Okay. So I mean, this is after doing 6 weeks of Kaplan, investing all this time and money and not getting the result that I wanted. Devastating. I mean, devastating. Obviously, it took me longer than 6 weeks to study, which is where my gap started. Okay. So for those of you who've heard the word red flags thrown here and there and the other, Red flags are usually what we in the IMG community call maybe the items of our application that are not the most competitive. So in that red flag category, you usually hear USMLE is one of them. You may hear, gaps, clinical gaps. So gaps means you have these periods of time in medical school where you were not actively enrolled in school, or maybe you were on a leave of absence, or you graduated medical school and have not been clinically practicing over a period of time. So that's a gap. So I acquired a gap in that process of studying for the USMLE, only to come out in the 89th percentile. So that wasn't very impressive for me. And if you convert that 89th percentile to today's values, that's about I would say like a 200 cutoff, right? And so at that point, I knew I had to do something else. I knew if I wanted to match, I needed to either step it up on step 2. I needed to work on my clinical experiences, my networking, and my research opportunities. I had to make my application great again, right? Okay. So at that point, I actually, my visa expired because it was an F1 visa, so it was about to expire. In order not to become illegal in the United States, what I did was I converted from a J1 to from a F1, I'm sorry, to a B1, B2, which is a visitor visa. In that process, it came with its own challenges. You can only do so much on the B1 visa, but the good thing is you can do clinical rotations on a B1, B2 visa, for those of you who don't know. So I was able to complete my clinical rotations as part of my Caribbean Medical School's plan in the United States. So that's how, we ended up on this part of the globe. At that time, I was in Chicago, discombobulated, confused, no mentorship, no guidance, no coaching. Now you can come on Instagram Live and I can give you all the pearls, all the tips, everything you need to do right here. And you may be wondering like, wow, what was this available when I was a student? No, there was nobody talking about this stuff. It was crickets. Okay. People didn't even want to be identified as IMGs back in the day. So having to deal with that, with gaps, with red flags, with USMLE performance that you feel is not optimal, and being a Caribbean medical student, the stigma, especially now, right? When you look at the current climate, right? Like there's a lot of, talk around people who are in positions that they do not deserve, whether that is as a result of like, DEI policies or different kind of favoritism and things like that. There's a lot of talk around that. So in this day and age, what you need to bring to the table is you need to be able to bring a competitive package. You need to be able to bring something that is irrefutable, meaning it cannot be refuted that you earned your position. And so when we start talking about that, those are the challenges that we'll be speaking over the next 5 days, like how you're going to overcome these challenges so that you can present yourself in a way that is holistic, you are well-rounded, you are competitive in every aspect, okay? Success is possible, 100%. Because if I could do it, okay, you can also do the same. I'm looking at my little notes here so I don't get off track. If I can do it, you can also do it. And I have countless IMGs that I've coached, that I've worked with, who have proven this to be true. If you really have a winning mindset, you have the right mindset, and you implement what we'll walk over the next 5 days, starting from day 1 here, which is the reality check and understanding the landscape, you stand a really good chance at this match, okay? I promise you. So let's look at the data for IMGs in general. Like, where do we stand, right, compared to our prior years? So last year in 2024, we as IMGs showed a significant improvement in our match rate. We went up by 7.8% compared to 2023. That may not mean much to you, but that means over 9,045 human beings, doctors and medical students like me and you, got into residency. 9,000. When I hear numbers like that, you know what I think to myself? I don't think to myself, I can never make it. Because that's the mindset that gets you down into the gutter, down into the dumps. When I hear numbers like that, I'm like, there is plenty of position. There are plenty opportunities, okay? Okay, the African is coming out. There are several opportunities, right, for me as well. I just need one of those 9,045 spots. So 9,045 IMGs obtained first-year residency positions in the United States in 2024. Now we know for 2025, we're going to get that data here over the next few weeks with the current match, right? And out of that, that was an increase from 2023. So this year, we'll be interested to see if we continue to increase or we continue to decrease or what the changes would be. For US citizens, so those are people who do not require visas or people who have some type of legal presence in the United States, whether it's legal permanent residence, they had a match rate that was even higher than those of us who are non-US IMGs. So US IMGs had a 67% match rate. Again, it's not 100%, and it's not 100% even for US for American medical graduates. So it's unrealistic for us to expect that it'll be 100% for us, right? Because it's not 100% for anyone. But 67%, I think, is pretty good because we started at 58, 60, and this is for US citizens that are international medical graduates. Now, for non-US citizens who are IMG, so those are those of us who require visas, J1, H1B for residency, we had a 58.5% match rate in 24. So when you look at numbers like that, it tells you that, you know, for example, for US citizens, you had an 823 more US citizens that maybe are foreign medical schools like in the Caribbean or in Europe who are IMGs that got in a lot better. 832 more people got in than the year prior. Can you not be one of those 832? Do you think really that you do not have what it takes to be one of those people? Is that what you're telling yourself? Because the mindset that you have in this journey is going to be super paramount. And I know as IMGs, we all deal with the big old imposter syndrome, right? For those of you who don't know what it is, we can talk about it. Imposter syndrome is this like psychological experience where despite evidence of your competence, right? Some of you were the best in your medical schools. Okay, I know, because I've coached some of you who were top tier at Dow Medical College, at several great international medical schools, okay? And you, or even in your undergraduate classes, you did really well in school. However, you're experiencing this psychological process where you doubt your competence, okay? You doubt your own accomplishments. Am I speaking to someone? I'm speaking to myself. You doubt your abilities and you feel like a fraud. You feel like Dr. Loom is over here telling me that 9,045 people got into residency last year. However, I can't see myself as one of those 9,000 people. Is that you? I see many of you giving me the hearts right now. If that's you, just tell me right now in the comments, right? Just give me like a me or a yay, okay? And if you want to be added to my list to get reminders on these, I want you to just drop wait list in the chat, okay? Drop wait list in the chat. You can also drop the number 5. Drop wait list or 5, okay? So we're consistently feeling like a fraud, feeling like someone's gonna come out here and expose us to being competent. And how do I know this? How do I know it? I have been there. I have experienced it. I know it. I tell you, even after I got into residency and I got my job as an attending, I remember a day where I was literally panicking in my apartment because I thought someone is going to find out. I thought, no way. They're going to know that I went to a Caribbean medical school. They're going to know that I transferred. They're going to know that I was in the 89th percentile. Step 2, I did significantly better. I got that 99th percentile, which would have been like equivalent of 240 in today's day in class. But I still didn't, and I passed step 3, mind you. And I went to a board certified residency, finished my residency, and here I am in my apartment. I have this attending job. It was particularly when I got a promotion. I got a promotion to go into administration. So I was in hospital administration. I was a chief quality officer. So I get a CQO behind my name. I was working alongside of the chief medical officer. And it hit me. Oh my God, you're going to get found out. And this is something I experienced in residency. I experienced it when I was applying every single time, when I was applying to every single program, even when I applied to fellowship. You always feel like something bad is about to happen. I'm going to get found out. I don't deserve to be here. I'm not smart enough. And some of you are actually victim of like media, right? You see all this crazy stuff on the internet, and they're talking about, I saw some reels the other day, which a couple of my friends made, which is very much on point with a viral video about like being questioned if you're like if a physician of a minority group walked into a room, the first question is to not think that they deserve to be there. So many of us feel like that, whereas IMGs, we walk into the room and we feel like we don't deserve to be there. And that's why I'm starting out our day one with the reality check, because if you cannot see yourself as 1 out of 9,045, I will help you see yourself as 1 out of 9,045. Everyone that I coach would always tell you one thing. If there's nothing else I'm gifted in this world, I know God gave me one gift, which is the ability to help people see the great in themselves, is the ability to help people wake up that giant within. Okay. I know I have that gift of encouragement, but not just for fluff, not for words. I'm not here to make you feel better about yourself. I'm here to give you a reality check. Okay. Because it is real. It is true. None of this is made up. You have what it takes to make it. Okay. So if we can just get past that mindset, if we can just get past this little hump in the road, this little self-doubt, this negative emotion of worry and anxiety, okay, if we can just get past that, I promise you we can make it together. So if you want to work with me and you want to be with me in this, you need to type in the chat wait list or send me a DM so we can get you on my mailing list, because you need this information every single day throughout your journey. You need someone that's going to be in your back pocket telling you how possible this is. You need someone that's going to be able to lead you in the right direction, okay? Fear has no place here. Frustration has no place here. Depression has no place here. Doubt, despair, shame has no place here. Envy, you're looking at, oh, other people have done it. You know people in medical school that have done it. You think they're better than you, and so that's why you can't do it. This is not the place for it. We're going to figure out what can you right now in your arsenal, what do you have in your pocket that you can use to really make yourself that competitive person, okay? So today is about the reality check. We're just getting started. So let's go over some reality check things, because I feel like if we're doing a reality check, let's see specialties where IMGs matched, right? Because that only makes sense, right? So we can see ourselves in those specialties as well. Because honestly, I believe that seeing is believing, okay? The Bible says, without faith, it's impossible to please God. One of the ways that I build my faith is to visualize and to see what is current, like what is available right now and how can I be that person. I don't look at data like this anymore and say, not me. It's not my portion. It's somebody else's. No, not anymore. Now I look at it and I say, gosh, I have to be one of those people, one of them. And so what do I need to do to be one of them? That's the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And I teach that extensively in one of my in my program that's actually coming up this April. But that's besides the point. So let's look at, for example, anesthesia. Anesthesia is, we're going to go from A to Z. You look at anesthesiology, you look at the number of IMGs who matched into anesthesiology. You had about 100 that were US IMGs versus 113 non-US IMGs. So again, in all these specialties, you're going to see representation of IMGs. That's the right question. MTA Vakoli. How can I be one of those people? When you ask the right questions, the answers will come. When you ask the right questions, the answers will come. When you ruminate over the wrong ideas, that festers. What you plant is what will grow. What you spend time on is what will be cultivated in your garden. If you go out to your garden in the spring, now it's spring here in Cleveland, and you start planting, in 3 months, you'll reap seeds of what you have planted. So if you plant the right seeds, you'll have the right results. Okay, there you go. So we're talking about internal medicine next, because Dr. Gupta wants to know. So internal medicine has 9,800 positions. 11,500 people applied to internal medicine, meaning there were way more applicants than positions. So meaning there were going to be people who went unmatched. There were 1.18. Obviously, nobody can be a 0.18 position, right? So for US IMGs who matched, you had 1,054, And then for non-US IMGs who match internal medicine, guess what? Guess what? Guess what? Guess what? Guess what? 2 times the number. So you have 1,054 matched US IMGs, and non-US IMGs you have 2,431, guys. So when you see data like that, 2,000 people that are non-US IMGs match into internal medicine, US IMGs 1,054, and you're over here thinking you're a non-US IMG who doesn't stand a chance, when over 1,000 more of you got into residency in internal medicine. Okay, all right, I rest my case. So let's look at other internal medicine specialties. You have internal medicine and peds. It's a small specialty, so there are only about 392 positions. And out of those who matched, you had 9 IMGs that are US citizens, and you have 9 who are non-US. So it's like a 50-50 there. That's for people who do med peds. So like you do a combined residency. It's a 4-year program for those of you who don't know. So you do internal medicine and pediatrics, and you'll do 2 board exams at the end. You'll do internal medicine and pediatrics boards at the end of your residency. Let's look at some surgical specialties, because one of the things that I hear from people is, well, internal medicine is friendly for IMGs, so that's not a problem, but what about general surgery? Like, we don't stand a chance there. General surgery had 1,622 positions, okay? Non-US IMGs who got into general surgery were a total of 75. US IMGs who got into general surgery was 74. So really about the same number, if you look at it. And what does that tell you? Again, 50-50 chance whether you're a US IMG or non-US IMG. Give the application, prepare the application, submit the application. But before you do, implement Dr. Loom's recommendations, okay, which is what we're going to be getting into. You have to show up every day here for the next 5 days. Don't miss a session. All right, so let's talk about orthopedics, because someone asked about it. No, so this is general surgery. I'm not talking about TY. I'm not talking about preliminary. I said general surgery. I did not say preliminary. I said general surgery. All right, so let's talk about orthopedics. Orthopedic surgery, 875 positions across the country. Matched only 8 for US IMGs, and for non-US IMGs, 11. So a total of 19 positions went to IMGs altogether. General surgery. Now, here's the deal with the preliminary. Most IMGs, I would recommend, if you're applying to general surgery, apply into a preliminary year and also a categorical year, which is the direct 5-year program. Because most IMGs sometimes that do get into the full categorical position may have already completed the preliminary year. It's more likely than not that they've completed the preliminary year. Again, doesn't mean that you wouldn't get in without a preliminary year. Again, in my program last year, I can remember one person who graduated from medical school in India who matched into general surgery categorical without a preliminary. I also had another lady who matched from a Nigerian she went to medical school in Eastern Europe, but she's from Nigeria, also matched into categorical. And then I had 2 others that matched into preliminary. So I do know, yes, preliminary, so it's a 50-50. If you want to get your PGY2 position, you can start out with a preliminary. So let's look at pathology, which I think is another hidden gem in the IMG community, because it's very friendly for us IMGs, but for some reason, a lot of us don't have interest in it. I don't know why, but US IMGs, you had 60 positions that went to US IMGs and 198 that went to non-US IMGs for pathology. Pediatrics, you had 208 that went to US IMGs and 338 that went to non-US IMGs. So, I mean, you look at some of these specialties, pediatrics matched over close to 600 IMGs. The question goes, what do I need to do to be one of those people for my cycle for 2026, right? Because 2025 cycle is going to close very soon, but what can we do for 26, right? What can we do? That's what we're here for. So psychiatry had 2,047 positions across the country. Matched positions 178. For US IMGs, for non-US IMG 128. So when you're looking at these numbers, think about it. If you had 128 people standing in front of you right now that tell you that they became psychiatrists, right, by virtue of being that they prepared themselves and applied, which is what we're going to talk about. What are we going to do to be these people, you should see yourself in that crowd of 123 or that crowd of 500, right? That's the first thing. Your mind has to see. You have to see it with your mind's eye to be able to manifest it. So dermatology, and then I see another question on USCE. We will be speaking about USCE on day 3. So just to give you a recap, if you're just joining, today we're focusing on the reality check, the mindset, understanding what the IMG landscape is right now. Because I think if you don't understand that, nothing else matters. You need to be able to see what's possible, right? Day 2 is a great equalizer. That's Tuesday, tomorrow, the USMLE, demystifying it, what you can do to make this the best USMLE that you're about to take, whether it's step 2 or step 3 or OET. That's what we'll be talking about. Day 3, we'll be diving into USCE. So for you, Dr. Gupta, if there is a USCE right now, apply to it. You know why? Because there's always a wait list. If you apply to USCE now, you don't always get it right now. You may be on a wait list for 2, 3 months, 4 months. So if you apply now, you get ahead of the game, okay? So someone asked about dermatology. Dermatology is one of those specialties where it's super niche. You know, we all wish we were dermatologists because we think that you just sit in the office and do nothing, which is not true, by the way. But 544 positions, and 9 of those went to US IMGs and 8 went to non-US IMGs. What they don't tell us here is if the IMGs had done research beforehand or if they had done a PGY 1 year. That's something to consider. Most people that are going to match into dermatology, so out of these, 17, I would bet you more than 75% of them have done research in dermatology and have done 1 or 2 years already of residency, either in a preliminary TY or other specialty, okay? So that's a hidden thing that we don't talk about a lot, but direct dermatology, very rare for the IMG, typically have to be able to go through a channel of a prelim or a research pathway, okay? So now that we've kind of just touched a little bit on that, we can go over some more specialties. If you have a specialty you want to know about, let's talk about it. Just drop it in the chat. And more so, if you type waitlist or the number 5 in your DMs, you're going to get a link to join me for more of these, okay? More of these. There's more where this came from. And do come back the rest of the week at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So emergency medicine, let's talk about emergency medicine and then we'll talk about family. Okay, I see 2 people family. So emergency medicine, 2,921 positions, and 169 went to US IMGs with 43 going to non-US IMGs. That's pretty good for emergency medicine because ER has been pretty challenging for a bit. But it's getting more and more friendly towards IMGs. So family medicine. So for family, there's 4,916 positions, probably one of the specialties with the most, after internal medicine, family medicine has the most positions in the match. So meaning that, you know, they're good. Every year there's going to be more internal medicine doctors than any doctor, followed by more family medicine doctors, followed by more pediatricians, followed by more, I believe after pediatrics is psychiatry. Yes, followed by more psychiatrists, followed by more obstetricians, followed by more emergency medicine before obstetricians. So if you were kind of confused and you're like, I'm not really clear, I don't know which specialty I want to go for, but I want to get in kind of deal, you could look at those top 5 and see where you best align with. So family medicine has 4,916 positions in the last match. For those who matched, it was 632 that were US citizens. And get this, for non-US, 383. And I've heard this a lot from people lately who reach out to me and say, but Dr. Luma, have you noticed that family medicine is no longer taking non-US IMGs as they used to before? And, you know, you can correlate that with, like, even when you go to the AFB resident and student conference where they have meetings and showcase residency programs, and it's more of a networking conference for future residents, and they don't take people that have like a cutoff of over 5 years, but that's just for the conference. So don't get mistaken by that. I've had people in my program that have matched even after 10 years, 14 years after graduation, that are non-US IMGs as well. So Even though you see that they take more US IMGs in family medicine than non-US IMGs, that doesn't mean you do not stand a chance. The question is, what do I have to do? That's going to be the question of the week. So as we round up for today, I want to leave you with a few key points, okay? I want you to remember a few things, and you're going to take, if you're taking notes or if you're just going to come back and watch this later on, we're just going to go over some summary points, and then I'll take some questions. So today was all about the reality check and going over what is possible for us as IMGs. Oh, someone wants us to do OB. Let's do OB before we leave. Okay. So OBGYN has 1,500 positions, or had 1,500, 1,503. And remember, new programs open up every single month or year. And out of 1,503 positions, 42 of those went to US IMGs and 39 of those went to non-US IMGs. So a little under 100 went to IMGs in general. Again, one of those specialties where IMGs tend to shy away from because they're afraid, they don't stand a chance. But again, you have to ask yourself, what do I need to do to be one of 45 or one of 38 if I need a visa? So really what makes the IMG path different from the US medical graduates path is simply the fact that we have a foreign medical school on our CV, and we're not necessarily always the priority. But it doesn't mean that you as an individual cannot be the priority for a specific program. And that's my focus. My focus with you today is not to focus on the generalities. It's not to focus on the big picture. I want you to see yourself as that one person who can make 1 out of 35, 1 out of 95, 1 out of 100, 1 out of 1,000, 1 out of 2,000. That's my focus. Because when you start looking at generalities, you lose the point. And everything I recommend to you will not work if you're not focused on just your path and yourself and thinking about, how do I get myself from where I am now, which is point A, to my point B? Common struggles that we're going to be running over all through this week is USMLE performance is tomorrow. So do come tomorrow. We'll be talking about USMLE study pearls, what you should know, how to study, how to prepare for the exam. We'll be talking about the lack of US clinical experience on day 3 on Wednesday. On Thursday, we'll be talking about the match strategy that I recommend, and Friday is a surprise, so make sure you come for that. And my last key words for you guys tonight is success is possible. I have proof of others who've done it, and I want to leave that with you today. I want to give you some proof, because I feel like when you see people who are doing what you want to do, it's easier for you to believe that it's possible, isn't it? I mean, is that a lie? Let me know. Have you ever wanted something so bad and you see somebody that's just like you who has accomplished that? What does that make you feel? How does that make you feel? Doesn't it make you feel positive? Like, this is possible, right? It makes you feel like this is something that I too can achieve. We want to build those types of emotions, because those are the emotions that will be the foundation for our thought process, right? If you think about it, how do we take action? In order to take action towards something, whether it's study for exam, we need to first have a thought about it. We need to have an emotion to drive that thought, and then we're going to take action, and then we'll see a result. So a lot of times what happens with us is we get stuck in our circumstances. Our circumstances, like, I'm an IMG, I have red flags, I have this, I need a visa, I don't stand a chance, I'm like Dr. Loom, I didn't have a 240, this and that and the other thing. But when you focus on the circumstances, what you're not doing is taking action. Thinking is not action, okay? Ruminating and imagining is not action. Action is doing. It's something. It's an action. It's a verb. So I want us to just look at beginning to ask ourselves, what do we need to do? Who do we need to be that person that's going to yield really different results? Okay. When you think about the match, what I want you to think of, I want you to think of success. I want you to think of amazement. I want you to think of being like you can crush it, like you have what it takes. I want you to be hopeful. I want you to be optimistic. I want you to feel elated about the process. I don't want you stressed. I don't want you discombobulated. I don't want you scared and embarrassed. I don't want you frightened. No. I want to build in you the fact that you are valued, that you are accepted, and that you are enough. You hear me? You are enough, and you have what it takes to be successful. Because if I can do it, you can absolutely do it. So here's your homework. Here's your homework. Your homework is you're going to come back tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll pick up where we left. We're going to be diving into USMLE expectations, how you're going to study for the USMLE. We're going to also dive into USCE the following day, match strategy. I have so much in store for you guys, but I hope, if nothing else, that you got inspired tonight. And I want you to type in the chat either number 5 or the wait list so that we can get you added on so you can continue to get this material in your inbox free of charge. So I have a question in the chat box. It says, hi, apart from VSLO right now, what programs are open for USCE and IM? There are tons. If you go to my website, actually, I was going to give you guys a surprise. Let's first give you the surprise, and then I'll show you where you can find some. If you type the word electives to me in a DM, it will give you a list of places that have accepted IMGs in the past. So you just have to type the word electives in a DM, and I'll be able to send you a list of that. We will talk about publications and research on day 3. That's Wednesday night. So come on Wednesday night for that. Now, this page that I'm going to I look at it as a page where I want you to be inspired by. All right? Because when you go home tonight, or maybe you're already at home, but when you leave this live tonight, you'll still be bombarded by these thoughts, these things in your mind that's just going to want to take you down. For lack of better words. Electives, you have to send in a DM. I don't have it in this chat. In the DM, electives will give you what you need. But let me show you this page, and I have my computer open here. Let's see if I can flip my camera around and show you this page. Let's go here. Okay, so this is a page of possibilities. And the reason I like this page is it's drninalum.com/testimonials. But when you scroll down this page, it shows you people just like you who match, despite having red flags, despite having concerns, despite having all these things that hold us back. Imposter syndrome, you name it, they'll tell you. And I like that they even go in detail, right? Like this is Dr. Jazz G. She gives you detail about her process, where her red flags came, how she overcame it, okay? Dr. Miracle, you have several IMGs here, Dr. Samar, Mahmood, all of these people are now in residency, okay? These are doctors in residency. And we have men too, but men never send their pictures. So a lot of their testimonials are not going to have pictures with them, but you'll see that on there. But the reason I'm showing you these people is because I want you to see a wall of possibility. And so before you go to bed tonight, read through these. Ask yourself, what do I need to do to be that one person who gets in spite of? How can I be one of these people who had red flags and yet they still made it, right? That is the thing. You can do it too. It's all about the possibility. So that brings us to the end here. And I thank you for joining me. I thank you for being here with me. I'll see you tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Meet me in the DMs if you have questions, anything that you still feel like, Dr. Lum, I wasn't clear on this. Meet me and we'll talk about that. Tomorrow is all about the USMLE. Even if it's step 1, step 2, step 3, don't miss it. Don't miss it. All right. See you guys.
Hello, hello, hello. IMGs, welcome to day 2. Day 2 of overcoming IMG challenges. This is day 2 of 5 of my 5-day challenge. So welcome. Grab you a cup of water. Prepare your fingers for questions. Remember, just a little orientation. You can drop questions in the question box at the bottom. Let me know, how do you like my sound? I'm using this microphone today. I've had this microphone for a while, never really used it. I got out of the box today. So let me know if my sound is good for you. So today's topic is the great equalizer. And you may be wondering, what is the great equalizer? The great equalizer is the United States Medical Licensure Exam, the USMLE. And the reason I call it the great equalizer, it's because it's the first sort of screening factor that most programs are going to use when determining who to interview, okay? So they use it as a filtering opportunity to be able to limit the number of applications that they're going to have to download. So a lot of us need to make it through that cut so that we can get past that first stage of submitting applications, and then they at least download it for review. What happens is every program is different, but I guarantee you All programs cannot review every single application, okay? I just don't think it's humanly possible. However, if you have a screening criteria, you can decide to screen applications or applicants that come with certain criteria, all right? And I know for a fact, USMLE, especially when you go to a program's website and you see they'll have it written there that maybe they prioritize a certain score cutoff, that is usually a way to filter through who they're going to keep or invite for interview. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I see Dr. Danny in the room, return customer. Fian Fire, DL, Sundas Rehan. All right, IMG Roadmap is here. Rebecca Cheek, Meta, totally, Tamika. Welcome, guys. Welcome. Get comfortable. And please don't forget to drop your questions in the questions box at the bottom so I can take them at the end of our time together. Because even though this is a live, if you want to come on live and you want to talk with me and you want to ask questions, you can do that. There is a request button at the very bottom of the screen where you can raise your hand or request to join me in the live. And I want you to feel free to ask me questions, okay? So this is supposed to be an exchange. I don't want this to be a lecture. I want it to be us discussing these challenges and helping you on how to overcome them. All right, I see Katerina Wickline was here yesterday. Shreya was here yesterday. Shreya is actually a current member of the IMG roadmap. She applied into residency this year. She's waiting on those results. Aren't we all, right? All right, welcome, welcome, welcome. Weenie, welcome. So today we're going to speak about the grade equalizer. And I'm going to first start off with some really important data that I want us to go over. So the first thing I want to talk about is just understanding the USMLE. Obviously, there's 3 portions to it: step 1, step 2, and step 3. Most step 1 now is pass fail, so we lost that advantage of being able to say, hey, I had a 270 on step 1 as a, knock my socks off moment. But you still have your opportunity with step 2. So programs are still looking for step 2 performance. They're still looking at step 2 performance. They're still looking at those numbers there. Step 3 is a whole beast of its own. In the past, it was reserved for those who needed to complete step 3 for their H-1B visa. However, we know now that having step 3 in your back pocket makes you super competitive as an IMG, especially if you've completed medical school already. So for my Caribbean medical students, they oftentimes do not need to have completed step 3 in order to apply into residency. They can apply into residency just like an M2 or a second year medical student without any qualms. But for those of us who are physicians practicing in other countries, you definitely want to seriously consider having completed step 3 because you are already expected at that point to be ECFMG to have been certified by the ECFMG. And your competition, which is actually really the whole thing here, your competition usually oftentimes will be presenting those scores as well. So if we look at like the score averages for matched versus unmatched applicants for the 2022 match, and the reason we're using the 2022 match is because that's the only place in which we have data, okay? We don't have data currently for the most recent years because this is the data that has been provided to us by the NRMP. It's called an SAP Crystal report that is produced ever so often by the NRMP to keep us up to date with this nitty-gritty data. So I'm going to analyze the data for you because I know you don't have time. You're studying for your exams. You're working on something more important. And let's just talk about it. You just listen and I tell you. So first of all, between matched applicants and unmatched applicants that were US IMGs, matched US IMGs had an average of 8 programs on their rank list. So they had 8 contiguous ranks. Unmatched tend to have less, so about 2 programs on their rank list. For non-US IMGs that are visa holders, about 6 programs on the rank list for those who matched, and again, 2 for those who did not match. So what that tells you is if you can get more than 5 interviews, you really position yourself in that position. You put yourself in that position to have a higher chance at getting invitations for interview. But what that really means is before you get an invitation for interview, you need to have presented an application that's competitive, right? And that's primarily what I help IMGs do is preparing a competitive application for residency. But one of the key factors of the application, which is sort of static, it's not dynamic. A lot of what I coach IMGs to do is dynamic, whether that's networking, whether that's obtaining letters, research, clinical experience. Those are dynamic. They change. But your scores are static. Once you have your scores, they're going to be your scores. We can't do anything to change them. When you look at USMLE Step 2 scores for those who match versus those who did not match, surprisingly, you would think there'll be a large difference. For matched IMGs in the year 2022, who were US citizens or US persons, so usually Caribbean medical students or Americans who went to foreign medical schools, the mean or average Step 2 score was 233. Okay, so you've probably heard the famous, you need to have a 240 to be competitive, and you're wondering, where did that come from? Well, that came from data from all the prior years. That it shows if you can score over 240, you have a higher likelihood of passing those filters that we talked about in the very beginning of this life, passing those filters to be able to be looked upon by the programs that you're desiring for. So when you look at US IMGs and say the average score, meaning some scored lower, some scored higher, but the average score of US IMGs for Step 2, I'm only focusing on Step 2 because Step 1 is now a pass-fail. Doesn't make a difference anymore. All we got to do is pass it. And I'll give you some tips and tricks before I leave here tonight. But for Step 2, matched, 233, unmatched, 225. So not much of a difference. Less than 10-point variance. And I want to let you know, though, that you still have IMGs who matched with lower or the 225 or scores different from that. So don't feel like because the data says unmatched had an average of 225 US IMGs means I don't stand a chance. Again, that's not the question. Yesterday we focused on our mindset and working through imposter syndrome and working through addressing those automatic negative thoughts that we have as IMGs because of what we've been told, right? So the question we're going to ask ourselves is, what do we need to do right now to position ourselves to be one of those matched IMGs? So for non-US IMGs, those of us that needed visas for residency or needed some kind of sponsorship for our stay in the United States, the mean matched score was 243. So what that tells you is, in order for a non-US IMG to match into residency, they typically score at least 10 points over the US IMG. So the non-US IMGs that are out here, and this is my point for those of us who are feeling a certain type of way because we feel like there's all this talk about we don't deserve to be here, or DEI policies, or at least this and that and the other thing, where you feel like IMGs are the lower end of the totem pole. That's false. Because if you look at the matched IMGs, they tend to score 243, non-US IMGs. So they scored higher than what was expected of them. Okay. For unmatched non-US IMG, the mean score was 234. Again, doesn't mean that 234s weren't able to match. No, that's not what it means. But this is just about the averages that we're looking at. And then when you even go down into a more nitty-gritty level and you start to analyze it from a standpoint of specialty-specific information, then you really start to realize that depending on the specialty that you pick, the criteria is different. So I'll give you an example. In that same year, let's take Step 2 scores again, because Step 1 is now pass-fail, so number of scores are out the picture. But if you look at family medicine as an example, the matched range versus unmatched range was not that much different. Matched range was anywhere from 232 to about 220. So 220 to 232 scores on Step 2. Well, unmatched range for that same specialty, right, was anywhere, again, between 210 and 225. So not much different. So what that tells you is you have people scoring similarly, but one gets matched and the other does not. And so why does that happen? The reason that happens is those challenges that we're talking about. And I'm going to go into some of them right now so we can begin to break them down and you begin to know how you can have action steps to move forward in spite of, right, these things. So I had my notes up here. Let's see if I can pull them up. There they are. Okay. So the first thing is understanding the exam, or a lack of understanding of the exam. If you have never taken a multiple choice exam before, then the USMLE shouldn't be the first one you do. This is where tests such as like the NBME forms comes in play hugely, mightily, right? So a lot of times you hear use USMLE World, use this, use that. The key is using a resource that allows you to think critically through each question stem. What I mean by critical thinking here is a question stem that allows you to go beyond the direct answer in front of you. USMLE questions are not just going to ask you, what is this, right? They want you to come up with the next step, and then they ask you a question about the third step moving forward from there, right? So you want to make sure that you are able to understand the method that is the multiple choice testing system. And the best way to do that is practice. So I usually recommend for IMGs, when you're studying for the USMLE, you want to start out first with Q banks, okay? So my typical study regimen for recommending when I'm coaching IMGs on how to study is this. I'm going to give you this gem for free. Before you even start your dedicated study period, you want to first of all take an NBME form to know where you stand in the grand scheme of things. Based on your NBME performance, then you figure out your weakest areas, whether that would fall out to be, let's say, biochem, micro, or if you're doing step 2, maybe cardiology, pulmonology, maybe systems-based, right? And then you want to triage your question bank that you're going to use. Let's say maybe we're going to use USMLE World, and start with your weakest link first. And you're going to answer those questions in timed mode, okay? So you're not going to do tutor mode right off the bat. You start off with time mode to see how you do with questions, like how you do with how fast you can respond to questions, how quickly you can digest what is presented to you, right? But the key though is for your study period, when you first go through the Q bank, I recommend tutor mode because you can read the stem, analyze the question, enter it, pick the answer, and see immediately feedback that helps you think differently. The mistake so many of us make is when we're studying for the USMLE, we look at the Q bank, we read the question, and we just try to find the right answer. No. You want to be able to go through every single answer on your Q bank, in your question stem, and look at why is answer B incorrect, why is C incorrect, why is E the right answer, and why is D not the right answer. That is how you learn using the question bank. Okay, so if you're not using this method already, I believe this is the best active studying method that's out there. And trust me, I've taken the USMLE time and over again, I guess, in regards to taking the step 1, step 2, step 3. I didn't have any attempts on the USMLE personally. However, moving forward from there, I've taken in-training exams, I've taken board exams, I've taken another board exam. And so you go over these questions so many times that you begin to realize what they're really asking you, okay? What they want from you is critical thinking, going beyond just the immediate response, going beyond just being able to respond to whatever it is that is being asked of you, but going a step further to say, what complications should I anticipate, right? What is the outcome here that I should be looking forward to or looking out for? That's what the USMLE wants of you, okay? So whenever you're doing your review, I recommend what I call an active studying method, which is using questions to help you to begin to critically think through concepts. Okay, you guys tracking with me? If you're tracking with me, drop 5 in the comment. So you know, like the number 5 for the wave. Just drop number 5 in the comment. Let me know that you're tracking with me. You can drop me a question. Oh, hey, Chef. All right, Chef Andre, welcome to the chat. All right, yes. All right, so now we're gonna go over some other things that I believe are challenges that we IMGs face, which I think the first that we've mentioned is understanding the test and understanding how to study for the test. Memorization doesn't help you in this scenario. Passive reading doesn't really help you with studying for the USMLE, in my opinion. You want to be actively studying, meaning passive reading is taking a textbook and just reading the pages of it and hoping that the material just like gets into your brain somehow. Active reading is putting yourself in a test-taking environment, putting yourself under pressure, much like how you put yourself under pressure in the clinical environment on a normal day. All right? So if you're tracking with me, drop the number 5. There we go. All right. So when you're using a Q bank, you want to be able to supplement your Q bank with where your weaker areas lie. So let's say you did the initial NBME and you noticed that your weakest areas were physio or cardio, GI or biostats or whatever. And you decide to say, okay, I'm going to set myself in tutor mode, 20 questions. I usually do about 30 questions when I'm first starting out, 30 questions in tutor mode. And I grab me a book like this, okay, or a booklet, and I begin to answer the questions one by one. When I get the answer incorrect, I look through and say, okay, why did I pick this answer? Okay, what was deceptive about this answer, and how do I need to address it? So what that does for my brain is it helps me to begin to ask those questions that I need to ask as if I'm a test writer. So if A is right, why is B wrong, right? And if I can prove why B is wrong, maybe because something in the STEM tells me, well, this is a 59-year-old male and this condition that they're describing is common in adolescents, and I can say, no, this is a common condition in younger people, so I rule that out, right? I go to C, why is it incorrect? Well, it's incorrect in this scenario because of this and this and this, but that would be the right answer if this question was about a sister condition, right? So when you go through that process, you're also making yourself notes of what you're learning. Because when you're actively learning, what you're doing is you're activating your brain, your prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for executive functioning, thinking through complex tasks. What you're doing is that hand-brain connection is helping you with retention, memory retention. A lot of times if you're listening or just reading, you're not really retaining as well as you could if you were reading, studying, and taking notes of what you understand. Because now you're processing that information, you're processing that language, you're making sense of it in your own words, in your own internal voice, and then you're making notes in that same voice. That is more memorable than simple memorization. That also helps you with clinical reasoning. That's why on the rounds, when you're rounding in the hospital and they pimp you on rounds, what happens? When they're pimping you, they're asking you questions and such, it's because in that scenario of you being asked questions, you're demonstrating clinical reasoning. Now, the second thing that I noticed that IMGs that's a challenge for us is we have too many resources. We have resource overload. We want to buy everything. Oh, I've heard about micro flashcards, I buy it. I've heard about this, I buy it. Buy this and I buy that and the other thing. You do not need everything to pass the USMLE. You only need 1 or 2 resources, to be honest, if you ask me. And that could be your Q bank and maybe your video resource or your audio resource that you use to supplement your knowledge. So for me, if I'm doing a Q bank and I meet a question and I'm like, I don't understand why C is the right answer and B is the wrong answer, I will find that section in my video resource. So I love audio visuals to study, and I strongly recommend them, and I also strongly recommend Q banks. With audio visuals, we're all visual learners. You're watching me on the live right now. It's probably more enticing than listening to me on your headphones and not seeing my face. Because we can connect in an audio visual platform like this, it feels like I'm in the room with you. It feels like I'm literally coaching you at your bedside, right? Doesn't it? So if that's the case, what makes you feel like with an audio visual, you're not going to get the most out of what you could learn from it, especially in this world of, our attention spans have been reduced to the span of a TikTok video, right? So now what we can do for ourselves is utilize audiovisual resources to the best of our ability to be able to help us retain the material that we need to retain. So with audiovisuals, what I would do is I'll open the section of the video, whether that was in that back in the day, a Kaplan video or whatever video resource, Pathoma, whatever you're using to study, and I'll be cross-verifying to read just or listen to just that section of the tutorial or the commentary so I understand better why my answer was incorrect. That's it. So we've talked about first understanding the test. We talked about the limits of access to resources, which is really more so about sometimes an abundance of resources as well, because there's so much information out there, it's hard to figure out what to prioritize. But using some type of a Q bank, I love UWorld. They're not sponsoring any of this. This is a personal opinion. and the NBME practice exams. Between those two things, you're golden for every USMLE exam, in my opinion. Those are some key challenges that I know. And in coaching IMGs, I know having a support system is a big challenge. Many of us don't have the support that we need. We don't have network of alumni or other people to study with, which is why when I created the IMG roadmap, one of the things that I hear as feedback from my students in my roadmap program is, boy, we're so happy that we have one another here, because it's like a whole school of its own. It's like a school of hard knocks almost. And they help each other and they find study buddies, especially when in this season when you're preparing for the USMLE. But having a support system is super, super, super important. I think also another key thing that doesn't really help us is the lack of structured guidance, right? Which is why I'm doing this live today. Because many of us don't have the resources, we don't have the timelines, we don't have the strategies on how to really do well on these exams, how to network, how to get the research, how to get the USCE. And you're lucky because tomorrow will be all about USCE during our live session. We'll be talking about USCE networking and research. So you don't want to miss that tomorrow at 7 p.m. I want to see you back right here, right? But the key with that section of thing is, when it comes to guidance, I wish we had more. I wish we had more support. I wish we had more guidance. And I feel like even in this day and age, it's much better than it was in my time. So you can definitely use a lot of these resources that are free right here on Instagram that we're providing you. And across the internet, there's several other resources that you can lay your hands on. So I want to take questions from you guys as we've just briefly touched on the USMLE. And I also want to invite you, okay, next week I'll be hosting a private webinar for IMGs and we'll be going in depth. I can only say so much in a live video, right? I don't know where this is going to fall. It's going to be all over the internet. So I try to restrict what I say. But in a private webinar, we can have better conversation. And if you want to be a part of that webinar, I want you to drop the number 5 in the comments. And we'll send you, it should be automated that my bot will send you the link to sign up for the webinar that's coming up next week. You don't want to miss that at all. So let's take some questions. I don't see any questions in the questions box. Let's see here. No questions yet. I don't see any hands raised. All right, let's see. No requests to join. Okay. Any questions down here? All right, yeah, the keyword is number 5, and you get an invitation to the live webinar next week, where I'll be sharing with you not only how you can join me and work with me on a group setting for getting you ready for residency, but okay, step 3. So the key with step 3, I think, is clinical experience. Before you do step 3, I also recommend that you've had USCE, because that allows you to understand the setting in which step 3 is set up in. So for step 3, there's 2 sections, the CCS cases, and then there's the regular written exam, like the question bank. Practice with somebody else, because the more you practice, the more comfortable you get with those CCS cases. I remember being able to have a study buddy to practice with was really, really important for me for step 3. The other thing I would say is there are books that, like, I think when I did Master the Boards, but there's also first aid and those kind of things that have cases that you can go over. You definitely want to be really good at having some kind of structure on how you do your history and physical exam. So how you ask your questions for your HPI, past medical, and being systems focused. So you're focused on what is the chief complaint. So someone with chest pain, we don't have to do all the systems, but we can focus on the cardiovascular system. We can focus on the respiratory system. We can check a little bit of musculoskeletal for like pedal edema and things like that. Being systems focused is super, super, super important for step 3. I also recommend doing step 3 if you are a graduate, because that definitely increases your likelihood of getting interviews. If you're already a graduate, and you want to familiarize yourself as well with the orders in the exam. So like the way that you put in orders, because that's also another area that you're super graded on. Another thing is your diction of English and how you speak to the patients, being able to be respectful. I'm sorry, that's step 2. I'm kind of mixing them up. But your orders, I think, are super, super, super important for step 3. How many weeks to prep for step 1? This is Dr. Athaluri. So I think it's person dependent. If you are a fresh grad, you probably don't need as long. I've seen people take, US students usually take anywhere from 6 weeks to study for step one, but you don't have to do that. You can do what works for you. Some people end up doing up to 2 months, 3 months of study time. But if you've been removed from like test taking or medical school, you want to give yourself enough time. But if you're a recent grad, I've seen recent grads take 2 months to study for the exam, 2-3 months on average, I would say. Judith, yeah, so recommended timeline to prepare. You should, first of all, your preparation should be guided by your performance on the NBME. So you're going to do the first NBME just to see where you're at. You've not started any kind of study, you're just assessing yourself. And then you go through your USMLE World, QBank, or whatever QBank that you're using. And then you come back to another NBME and compare your performance on the second NBME with the first NBME before going through active studying, using audiovisual resources, and making notes for clinical reasoning purposes. Okay, those are my 3 key take-home points. If you don't remember anything I said today, active studying, audiovisuals, and writing for clinical reasoning. Okay, so those are the 3 key points I think that really make a difference between those who score really high, and that's what helped me. That's what helped me go from an 89th percentile to the 99th percentile on my own exam, which is, for those of you taking the exams, there will be a comparison between going from a 200 to 240 from step 1 to step 2. And that was a talking point for me in my interviews. I was able to speak to my interviewers and tell them things I did to improve myself, right? So is it enough to take 3 months for step 1, Sarah? Yeah, that's enough. But it's not, so, okay, first of all, let's just not speed past that. There is no recommended time frame, okay? There's no right time frame. What should guide your decision to take the exam is not a time frame. It's your performance on the tests. By test, I mean your performance on the practice test. So if you're taking an NBME and you're not scoring comparatively as high as you would want to score on the real test, you are not ready. Did you hear me? If you take an NBME and you do not score as high as you would want to perform on the real test, you are not ready. That is the time frame that you need to be preoccupied with. All right. Any advice on overcoming test anxiety, overthinking questions? So I think for test anxiety, it's important if you have access to the resources, there's therapy for these things, okay? Because a lot of times some of us sabotage our exams because of test anxiety. That's just the truth. So remember, test anxiety is just another form of anxiety. If anyone came to you and asked for help with anxiety, you would recommend therapy for them. You would recommend study coaching for them, right? So it's the same thing in this scenario. If there's an anxiety issue, we need to address it just like we address anxiety. Cognitive behavioral therapy is the answer to any kind of anxiety issue. Now, with overthinking questions, one of the things that I found that is helpful for me is reading the question in the question first. So you get a case and you get the question that has a question mark, which is usually, most times, not always, the last line in the sentence where they have the question mark. What is the next best step, or what would you do in this? I usually would read that line first so I know what the STEM is asking me for. That way, when I'm reading through the STEM, I can guide my thinking to be focused on just the question. That's one way that I help myself not overthink. I hope that helped you too, Top Shelf 63. So thank you guys for joining me on day 2. Yesterday we talked about mindset. If you didn't watch that, please go back, because that's the reality check that you need in order to really make sense of this 5-day challenge. So start there. Today we talked about the USMLE as the great equalizer. And tomorrow we'll be talking about USCE, research, and networking. Now, your role right now is to drop me a number 5 in the chat, and that should automatically invite you to my private webinar next week. You don't want to miss that, okay? So drop me a 5 in the chat. IMG please make sure that we're capturing these people so that we can get them, these doctors, we can get them the right link for the webinar, all right? And as I mentioned yesterday, if you're looking for inspiration, don't forget I have tons on my website to keep you motivated and inspired and encouraged as you go through this process. Bisola and Co. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Hello, hello, hello. All right. My international medical students and graduates, are y'all in the building? Are you here? Are you here? Are you here? All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome to day 3 of the 5-day challenge on overcoming common IMG challenges. And I'm giving you a blueprint, a starting point, a place to begin to think about what your next steps would be. Welcome to the room, Hopi, Matavakoli. Gosh, I'm butchering Instagram handles today. Thank God it's not your real names, right? Vital, Top Shelf 63. I love to see the same people from yesterday. Weenie, I remember Weenie from yesterday as well. International Ally, okay, welcome. Declan Peters, welcome, welcome, welcome. So get settled. Hopefully you have your awa, your water. Okay, Mary. Okay, awesome. Thanks for letting me know your real name, Mary. All right. So today we're going to talk about, today's day 3. Did I say day 4 when I started? Lord, it's only Wednesday. Today's day 3 of 5. Our focus is on USCE networking and research, okay? So if you are new here, we've been doing a 5-day series where I go over just highlights of what I think you need to do to begin to chip at these milestones that you have to accomplish as an international medical graduate who is seeking residency in the United States. So what do I mean by that? There are several milestones you have to meet, and each of them pose a challenge. Each of them become a barrier. Each of them become some kind of an obstacle that we have to overcome to get to the other side. And so the goal with today's session is we can chip out one of these barriers, which is actually 3 in 1. When you think of United States clinical experience, or you think of research, and you think of networking, I'll bundle it up in one because there's only so much we can cover in 20 minutes. So we're going to try to make it as quick and swift as possible for you, so you leave today with some action steps on why and what you can do differently, okay? So let's get into some of what has happened before. So some data review, as we've done each one of these days. Tomorrow we'll be talking about standing out and creating a match strategy. So you don't want to miss tomorrow's session. It's actually really, really important that you have a match strategy of your own, that you figure out how you're going to make your own application stand out, okay? So if we start off with just looking at some NRMP data for research experiences and clinical experiences, as well as networking. So the thing with networking, I'm going to just start there, is networking is not quantifiable, meaning the way I network may be completely different from the way you network, but it doesn't make your networking any less than mine. Oh, it looks like I'm having some mic issues. Are you guys hearing my sound all right? Let's see, let me turn this little adapter on. Can you hear me all right? If you can, let me know so that I can fix this. You guys can hear me all right? Let's fix this, 1 second. Some technical difficulty here, but we're gonna work on that. Okay, there we go. Okay, is it better now? Is it even better? Because I want you to be able to have this available for a replay. Great, hearing me clearly. All right, sound works good. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're gonna go back to let's start from the very beginning. So when you look at the 2022 data for the match results for that year, you realize that IMGs, we always hear about research, and we hear about, you need to have research for residency. And that's one of the key areas that I know students who join my program, who join my course, typically come to me for coaching on how to start this research, how to find this research, how to find this USCE, how to network. All very great things. The mean number of research experiences that matched IMGs had, again, this is broken down into US IMGs versus non-US IMGs for the year 2022. And we're going over 2022 because that's the data that we have. So mean number of research experiences between matched and unmatched US IMGs, meaning US citizens who went to foreign medical schools, wasn't that much different. So that means IMGs are collecting similar number of experiences across the board. So for research experiences, again, this is not number of publications, but experiences, US IMGs had about 2.3 who got matched. So those who did not match had about 2.7. So not much of a variance, right? You can't write 0.7 of a paper, or you can't have 0.7 of an experience. So on average, you can say 2. For non-US IMGs, again, the difference between matched and unmatched was not very much different. 2.8 versus 2.9. So it tells you all IMGs are doing some type of work around the research world. The mistake that we make as international medical graduates is, actually it's not a mistake, but let me start by phrasing it this way. Some of us are going to be researchers and some of us are not going to do or have careers in clinical research. What I mean by that is there's going to be some of us who would pursue research as a career and will continue to work in research until in perpetuity, right? Because we're passionate about it, because we love it, because that's what we want to do. However, there are some of us who do not want to be research heavy. We want to be clinicians. We want to take care of patients. We like direct patient care. So for those people who are truly passionate about clinical research or research in general, I strongly recommend that you continue to pursue research if that is something that you are truly passionate about and you want to continue to pursue that even down the road. There's a subcategory of us who pursue research primarily because we want to be competitive, 2, because other people are pursuing it and we feel like that's what we need to do to sort of up the ante or be able to compete with others. And it's not a bad reason because you have to do what you need to do to prove yourself worthy of your program. So I don't fault you for doing that. I definitely fall in that category of not enjoying research, not wanting to be a researcher. However, participating in clinical research because I knew that it was going to give me the stepping stone that I needed for a fellowship application down the road. So I'm not knocking on you. It's perfectly normal to pursue it for that reason. In that case, you may find yourself not necessarily needing to run or be part of a randomized control trial, right? Which is extremely stringent, rigorous, and could take years and years and years before you publish. You may find yourself not needing to pursue a research fellowship. Again, what I am not saying is a research fellowship is not important. If that is within your, let's say you're applying for some of the competitive specialties, such as we know in the surgical world, dermatology, general surgery, even some obstetrics and gynecology programs, some plastic surgery for sure, orthopedics, vascular surgery, thoracic surgery. Yes, you want to go in heavy on your research. However, for the primary care specialties, you oftentimes you need to be able to implement research in your clinical practice without necessarily being the first author or the creator of the PICO question that you're seeking to answer, okay? So doesn't mean research is not important. It's what I don't want to say. I don't want you to leave here today saying, she said that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you need to find where you fall, okay, in that research spectrum and what is best for you and what is achievable for you. And that's where guidance from a mentor, leadership from a senior, coaching, mentorship, direction helps you because it gives you an idea of what is necessary for you in your unique circumstance to implement or add on to what you have in your application packet, okay? If we look at 2022 data again, the mean number of abstracts, presentations, and publications that were presented by matched versus unmatched, some variance very small. So in 2022, for US IMGs, starting with them, those who matched presented about 3.4 or had 3.4 abstract presentations and publications, compared to unmatched who had even higher, 4.7. So that tells you clearly what we know. A lot of IMGs will do research to make up for other areas of the application that are falling short. Doesn't make it wrong, but that is an observation that we've seen year and year and year again, okay? Non-US IMGs, on the other hand, if you look at matched IMGs, 7.6 mean number of abstracts, publications, and presentations, 7.6, okay? for matched versus 6.6 for unmatched. So again, is 1 point much different? In my opinion, not so much, whether you have one extra paper versus the other person. But using research as the only thing that's going to make you competitive, I think, is probably not, you're not leveraging your entire application if you're doing it that way. So coming in to say, I'm going to just pursue research because that's going to make me competitive, you may be setting yourself up for failure by just accumulating more and more research without looking at the whole entire application, without looking at your score performance, your letters, your personal statement, your volunteer experiences, your research experiences, your clinical experiences even, okay? So I want to remind you guys, I have a webinar coming up because, again, these lives are brief. We can only say so much on a live. I like to be able to bring you into a private setting so we can talk. If you want to join my webinar, I want you to go ahead and drop a 5 in the comments. Just drop a 5. It'll be a private 90-minute webinar where I will show you how you can be competitive for residency, meaning you are going to craft a holistic 360 application that doesn't only boil or hinge on research, but research is one part of it, but then there's other things that you're also hinging on. Obviously, we talked about yesterday static versus dynamic application requirements. The dynamic ones, your personal statement, your mindset, obviously, your clinical experience, your research, your networking. The static ones, okay, the static one is your score. My webinar is free 99, okay? It's free to everybody. You don't need to pay for it. I see Mary just asked that question. How does one join? How much is this to join? It is free 99. You type 5, we'll send you the link in your DM. And if you have any trouble with the link, just DM us back. Let us know, hey, something's off. I'm not getting whatever, I have trouble signing up or whatever the case may be. And if you don't get the link, DM me, DM my IMG roadmap page. We'll get you the link, okay? IMG roadmap, if you don't mind, can you paste the link as well in the chat right now so we can have that for those who want to come. But back to this topic of research. So when you look at research from that perspective, then you can begin to think about what specialty am I applying into and what is important for me to do. Not necessarily what did my colleague do, what did my friend do, what did my sisters, aunties do. What is necessary for you? That's what's important. Because what ends up happening is we go chasing waterfalls, chasing more things, more experiences, more research, stealing away from time for studying, which would really move the ante. Your USMLE score will actually impact your application. We steal from that time to go pursue experiences that do not always align with our passions or our goals. And what you're seeing these days in the match process is those who are receiving interviews from programs who believe that the applicant aligns with their goals. So you need to move away from, I'm just going to do this to check a box, into, I'm doing this because it aligns with my future goals, aligns with my career, and I see myself actually answering a clinical question that I'm passionate about and will move my specialty forward. So we need to dissociate from this checkbox mentality. That's what I'm really driving down. Because you could get the same number of research experiences, the same number of abstracts, presentations, and publications, but if those are not pertinent to your specialty. Remember when you're doing your review of systems, they want you to do pertinent positives and pertinent negatives, right? So if you're not presenting pertinent experiences, you're not going to hit the nail or the target with the programs that you are desiring. The AMC, I believe, put out the R3 mnemonic. So right resident, right program, first time, or something like that. I may be getting it wrong. If you know what that is, just put it in the chat. But the goal of that whole statement is we no longer want people going to programs they don't want to be a part of. Programs don't want applicants who just want to get a job. They want applicants who are passionate about what is presented in front of them. I see someone wants to ask me a question, so I'm going to view your request here. We'll see if we can to be equally knowledgeable about them, to be equally passionate about what they're offering, to be equally passionate about the specialty, and just not doing things because you just want to move to America, or you're already here and you just want a residency and you don't care. No, 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 no. You want to be able to present why you are the right resident for the right program the first time. And you're only going to do that by building some commonality with the program. And commonality does not equate, I'm just going to gather all these various experiences to make myself look important or make myself look competitive, right? Because I heard on this live that, well, 3 to 4 abstracts, presentations, and publications minimum got people matched. Well, for those of us who needed visas, it was even higher, 6 to 7. That is not the point. The point is, what is that actual work, body of clinical work, going to do for your career? What are you passionate about? How is that going to foster your specialty? What clinical questions are you trying to answer? That's what you get asked on interview day. Tell me about this project. Why did you do this project? What was in it for you? And when that passion is not there, people can tell really quickly. And that's how you lose them in your interview day. Okay? So we touched on research just a little bit. Let's touch on networking, because networking is an area where I feel I would be doing a disservice if I left here today without touching on this part. What networking is not sliding in someone's DM and saying, hey girl, can you help me with this? Hey, can you do this for me? No, 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 no. If you know that you will never meet this physician down the street and hey girl them on the shoulder, do not do that in writing. That's my first big tip. Mind your audience. That's the first point. Mind your audience, okay? And tomorrow we'll be talking about match strategy, which networking is a huge part of your match strategy, but you need to mind your audience. In my program, I teach people how to network. We actually have templates of how you're going to engage in email communication, what you say, how to respond, what to look out for, what to add, what to remove, what to keep away. Okay? We give you sample emails, we give you cheat sheets, templates, and more importantly, I give you my own secret rubric of the psychology that you need to be able to network. Because networking is very much like creating business friends or creating friends in the business world, right? You're not going to walk up to somebody, hey girl, can you be my mentor? No. Oh, hi, I'm looking for mentorship. Can you mentor me? Oh, hi, can you give me a clinical rotation at your hospital? If someone is not invested in you, they're less likely to be invested in your problems or to be invested in your passions or to be invested in anything you have to say in their DMs. Because what they're thinking about, what they're worried about is the next bill that they have to pay. They're picking up their child from daycare, their skin rash that they have, or the pimple that just broke off on their forehead. They're not worried about you and your needs and your wants. So when you want to approach someone for networking, you want to mind your audience. There is a method to how you address them professionally to begin, right? And two, you should only be addressing them in the same manner you would if you met them in person. Now, networking with individuals is very different from networking with a program, because a program is a body. There's people within the program that will receive your emails, that would receive your phone calls, and thus they're expecting a certain level of dialogue, a certain method of dialogue. You are applying for a postgraduate position, okay? A postgraduate position means you need to be able to have the diction, the language to address yourself as a physician when speaking to another physician. So if you're not going to meet me at a medical conference and tap me on the shoulder, hey girl, can you be my mentor? Consider how you're going to meet me in my email when you are also networking. And I'm not talking about myself because I'm on social media. You can hey girl me all you want, but I'm talking about the people who actually hold your job in their hands. Okay. So again, if you're interested in learning more about networking, about what you need to be saying, the psychology behind effective business networking, type number 5 in the chat and we'll get you the link to join my free webinar that's coming up in a few weeks. Okay. You don't want to miss this. If you have any goals of networking between now and September this year to apply for residency to match in 2026, you absolutely want to be a part of my webinar. So type the number 5 right now, right here in the chat, and get that link, okay? So when it comes to networking, we're going to talk about the things I teach you usually are how you network with individuals, how you network with programs, how you network at social gatherings, and how you network at conferences or medical meetings. I love, love, love networking at medical meetings. I feel like nothing beats that. It's in person, it's face to face, it's the best in my opinion. However, there are other ways you can network virtually, especially around the pandemic. We all got really used to virtual networking. There's using social media platforms, but using it correctly, using it the right way, using it with wisdom, right? Super, 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 super important. And networking is your gateway to your United States clinical experience. So if you want to have US clinical experience and you don't have that and you're looking for ways to get your own, you want to be able to know exactly how to network. So my webinar that's coming up is your 2026 Match Success Blueprint. That's the title. Crafting an application that attracts your dream program without you feeling overwhelmed. Because I know so many of us are discombobulated, overwhelmed, lots of stuff going on, lots of burdens on our plate. But this is going to be a really, really great opportunity for you to learn my key steps, okay, without the stress. All right. So when it comes to networking and USCE, they go hand in hand. So you're either going to pay for a rotation using an agency, which I really love AM opportunities. I use them. If you want to get more information on the paid agency side, just DM me and I'll send you the link for it. But on the personal side, I got my rotations when I was in medical school, my elective rotations, I should say. I got them without necessarily going through an agency. And I remember it was at the Cook County Hospital in Chicago, and it was all through online at first, and then later on in person when I had to present myself there to actually sign up. Um, but I did that all by myself without necessarily an agency. So agencies are great, especially for those of us who need visas from a foreign country, or we need more support, or we need someone to just, you're on a time crunch and you want to get it done, but you could still do it yourself. You could still be able to network on your own without an agency. 100% possible. And I want you to seriously consider that as an option as well. And again, I give you my rubric, my blueprint. You need to come to my webinar and you're going to get that for free 99. All right. So as we close today, we touched briefly on research, we touched briefly on networking, and very, very, very touched the iceberg on USCE. There's a lot on USCE, but I want to take your questions. I want you to ask me questions now. And if you're interested in coming into my webinar, just type in number 5, and it would give you a link to join me for more behind the scenes. All right. So I got a question that says the webinar is for 3 days, but I asked to choose one day. I choose Saturday. I hope that's how it works. Yeah. So you can attend either session because we know that everybody's on a different time zone. We want to make it available so that you don't only have one option and you can't attend. So you pick the time zone that you want or the time frame that works for you and your schedule and your school, your work life, and things like that. That's the goal of that. Let's see if I have another question here. So that question has been answered. It was asked by Dr. Claire. I don't see any other questions here in the chat. Again, the invitation to join the webinar is at type 5 in the chat and you'll get that link. Tomorrow we'll touch on match strategy, how to stand out during interviews. And this could be helpful even for those who are soaping this year, because standing out during interviews, I mean, you still have to soap, you still have to talk to people this year if you have to soap. But even if you're not soaping, it's something for you to begin to think about, okay? So Judith says, would you recommend cold emailing for USC and research fellowship? It's almost impossible to meet people in person. Absolutely, absolutely 100%. Like I said, that's how I got my USCE, was cold emailing. And I have that template within my program as well. And I have no problem with it, cold email. And if you go on my profile and you scroll down, you'll find some posts about my templates for cold emailing as well. It's definitely on my Instagram page. You just have to scroll all the way to the bottom, okay? Mary says, first, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Second, I have not taken step 2 yet, but assuming I fall in the 230s and have 8 publications, does it make it okay to apply to ortho? So there's no reason I would say no. Why would I say no? The best thing I always tell people to do is if you have an aspiration, you should pursue it 100%. So if you're wanting to go for ortho and you're going to, well, first of all, let's plan for the ceiling, right? Let's plan for the best. Let's plan for 260 if we can. And then if we fall amongst the 230. And you're going to have it, then go for it. But make sure your publications are in ortho-specific disciplines, in ortho-specific topics, and ortho-specific research, so that it's meaningful for the orthopedist that's reading your application, okay? It would make no sense to have a bunch of family medicine, a bunch of pediatrics, and unrelated to ortho publications and research and experiences. Like, that will make zero sense to an orthopedics, right? Just think of it that way. I'm trying to find so Mary says, I find if more publications make up for not so competitive board scores. IMGs have used that historically, but there's no evidence that getting more publications will make up for less competitive board scores. There's no evidence for that. In my opinion, actually, what helps people with research is not necessarily the number of publications, but let's say they're not as competitive with their board scores, but they're in a research lab and their PI is a physician or an MD PhD who can vouch for them to a residency program or becomes an advisor or a mentor or a sponsor for them. That's where people move the ante. The other area that people move the ante with lower scores on research is their letter writers in their research program that could be an MD PhD vouch for them strongly, and that letter writer is respected in the clinical community to where their opinion is taken word for word. Okay, so don't think that a lower score, just slapping on more research, would mean better. As you can tell from the data, unmatched IMGs had more research than matched IMGs. So you can tell people are already doing that. There's nothing new under the sun. You don't need to be doing the same thing. You don't need to be reinventing the wheel. You need to do something different, right? So Dr. Danny says, is it a problem if I'm not interested in research? I'm with you. I'm not. I'm not interested. It's not a problem. I still have a successful career, right? I still have my board certification in family medicine and in emergency medicine. Still not interested, never will be. Not my thing. But you know what I did instead was like, I'm not interested in RCTs, in meta-analysis, but I do like clinical work. I do like quality improvement work. I do like, cross-sectional surveys, things that are more make sense to me in a clinical setting. That's what I focused on. And nobody faulted me for ever doing that because it's a type of study. It's a type of publication. It's a type of clinical research. It's just not a RCT. It's just not a meta-analysis. It's not a systematic review. But can I write a book chapter? Yes, I have. Can I write a QI project? Yes, I have. Can I implement it? Yes, I have. That's what I'm great at. The program that admires that, which was my program, admired it and gave me the opportunity, right? So you don't have to be what everybody else is. All right, so more questions here. Does working as a medical scribe or assistant for some time count? Nope. Medical scribe work is not USCE. Medical scribe work is a work experience. It's a job. Your medical scribe work could help you network with physicians that you're working with, but that's about what it does for you. Does Dr. Claire says, does telerotations count as U.S. experience for someone unable to travel? Yes, it does. It is a clinical experience. It's just a virtual experience. Mary says, as a non-U.S. IMG, it's difficult to find those people. A PI who is in charge, what's something different you suggest? So, yeah, it's difficult to find a PI. Well, in that case, you have to do your research some way or the other, meaning you will be formulating your question and you will be funding your own research work. That's the only other thing I can recommend. The other thing I would recommend is attending a meeting, attending a conference, because that would expose you to more people that you can meet and ask these things. Another way people do is they'll cold email a bunch of PIs and see who's looking for anyone to help them on their project, if it's possible to help virtually. So I hope this was helpful for you. If you want to join the webinar, we will be talking about all of this and more. And specifically, I'll be giving you a very special offer on how you can join me in this 2025 to prepare you for 2026 residency match. We've touched on our first day. Day one, we did mindset, the reality check. Day two, we talked about the great equalizer, which is the USMLE. Today has been a little bit more about USCE research and networking, but there's a lot more to come. And yes, Dr. Claire, we've seen that happen time and time again. that it is possible to match without the research experience altogether, or without the research altogether, even in a university program or community program, it is possible. Because again, some of us are clinicians and some of us are researchers, and that's fairly reasonable, fairly understandable. Some of us are going to implement research, digest research, and not perform it. And that's okay. The key is that you understand how to read the papers, how to do it. So I've seen that within my program. I've seen students within my program without all these, RCTs on their back burner, but they have other things that work for them. They have high scores. They have networking, and they've done clinical rotations at programs that they desire to be a part of. And so it goes beyond just checking a box. That's the key. This is you're more than a checkbox. You're more than a list of requirements. You are a human being, and you should be presenting a holistic, well-rounded 360 application, because people want you. They don't want your lists that you're checking off. Nope, they want you. I hope this session was helpful for you. If you type in the number 5, you'll be getting the link to join me in a private webinar that's coming up. You pick your date and time, and I'll also be presenting you a great offer on how I can help you with more of this information. Obviously, we can only touch so little in our live stream, but there's so much more that we can cover behind the scenes. So type the number 5 and join me on the other side. Well, I see you tomorrow. Tomorrow's unmatched strategy and how to stand out during interviews. So I hope to see you there. Bye for now. Hello, welcome. All right, so this is for my IMGs. We're talking about how to stand out during your interviews and creating a match strategy. So a lot of times when you have, when I get messages from IMGs, they usually present like their stats. They'll say, I have a 210 on step 1 and a 250 on step 2, and I'm trying to figure out what I need to do. Do you think this is adequate, right? Do you think I should do more? Do you think I need to add to my portfolio, and so on and so forth? And so today I want us to just touch a little bit on creating a unique strategy for yourself, because having a strategy is really what makes you different from the next person. Everyone coming to this whole application process, all the applicants are coming in with different set of specifications, scores, experiences. So you really have to figure out how you're going to leverage your own story, how you're going to leverage this whole pathway to get into residency. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Dr. Nina Loom. I'm an IMG coach. I've helped, over 1,000 IMGs get into residency at this point. I own and run the IMG Roadmap program, which is the only coaching program that helps IMGs get into residency. I help IMGs master their personal story. I help them with their branding. I help them with creating enthusiasm for programs, creating a competitive application without having all the things that we think we need to have to be able to be successful, okay? So having done this time and time again, I can tell you with 100% reassurance that mastering your unique strategy is super, super, super important, because that's what makes you stand out from everybody else. You're not trying to be everyone else, you're trying to be yourself, okay? So first off, shout out to Lifeline Threads Boutique. They sent me this Family Med sweatshirt that I'm wearing today. It was a gift from them. I really appreciate their gift. So I'm going to give them a shout out, Lifeline Threads Boutique. I'm wearing your sweatshirt tonight. So get comfortable. Let's just go right into it, right? Because we have about 15 minutes on this live. I want to make sure you leave with some strong actionable steps. Remember, the code word today is 5. So if you are an IMG and you want to know more and you want me to help you with your next year's application, type number 5 in the comments, and I'll be inviting you to my free webinar on preparing for the next residency application cycle. So definitely type 5 in the chat and you get that link. And for those of you who've got the link, I've seen your registrations. If you've had any issues so far, you can DM me, ask me, okay? Remember, we have a question box in the bottom, my right hand corner. So do ask questions. So I see some repeat people in the room. Dr. Danny, Chidi, Mary. All right, my little niece is here, Momanka. Some TG Artistry. Oh, wow. Long time no see. You did my makeup for my wedding. Oh, that's awesome. Evan Corp. Lovely Lenai. Third Lucky. Hopi is another person who's been here before. All right. So welcome, guys. Get comfortable and ask any questions. You can place questions in the question box and we can take them at the very end. So I have my notes in front of me if I'm looking down. But my match strategy, there's 5 key points that I want you to remember. Okay, creating a match strategy. When you come to work with me to make yourself or create a competitive application, the first thing we're going to talk about is understanding the timelines and the deadlines. Because we need to make sure that you are starting the race at the beginning. A lot of you IMGs, you wait until the last minute to start preparing. And then you wonder why you're not getting interviews if you start your application prep in August. It doesn't work that way. You start at least a year out. I even dare say 2 years out. So when you are, if you're a Caribbean medical student, you already know this, you would typically be starting your application prep as soon as you start clinicals, because then you're in rotations, you're thinking about who your letter writers are going to be, what's going to go in your personal statement, experiences and such. If a Caribbean medical student is doing that at the start of M3, so third year medical school, if you're not a Caribbean medical student, you can't wait until August of the year you want to apply to start creating an application. Every August, my inbox is full. I hear from all different classes of IMGs, non-US, US IMGs, recent grad, old grads, and we're all scrambling to start then. It's too late, in my opinion. If you want to really get competitive, you want to start super early. And early is now. Early is yesterday. Early was yesterday, okay? So the first thing is understanding what the ERAS 2026 timeline would be. It would open up in June. But before then, this is the season of preparation. This is the runway, right? This is day number 4 of a 5-day challenge. Day 1, we talked about the mindset. We talked about unlearning things that we've known before. Day 2, we touched a little bit on networking. We've also touched on, we touched on the USMLE as a great equalizer. Then we went to networking and research. And today I really want you to think about creating this big grand plan, okay? So that's the first thing you're going to do is know your deadlines, know your timelines. You want to give yourself ample time. I think you need 1 to 2 years, to be honest, to create a competitive application, if you ask me. You don't start at the very last minute, okay? So if this is you and you want to start now because you're thinking, well, I should have started already, type a 5 in the comments and let me know so we can get you into my free webinar next week, okay? So strengthen your application is number 2. You want to work on strengthening your application. And how do you do that? Obviously, the higher the score, the better. That's the only way. I shouldn't say the only, the most important way. However, you can supplement with observerships, externships, research, your personal statement, your LORs from U.S. physicians carry more weight whenever possible, okay? And then the third thing is you're going to choose the right program. Some of you wait and pick the wrong programs. You cannot send your application to a place that is not going to welcome you. So one of the things I help you do is I help you research the right programs for you so you find the right program the first time and not have to go through this application more than one time. So you're going to research and I'll show you how to do that and how to select programs using appropriate match data. And then, you have to pick the number that you need. And that number varies from person to person. There's some data out there that can help guide you on how many programs you need to apply into. Again, these are all things that we do within my program. Number 4 is master your interviews, which we're going to touch on right next soon. Because, and I always tell people this, we always get worked up about how am I going to do on an interview? But before you even get an interview, you need to have created an application that people want to see. That's the first step. So before you get an interview, you need to have an application that programs want to download, programs want to interview you, they want to see you, they want to know you. So if you haven't first done that, you can throw interview prep out the window because it's not really going to be helpful. So I always say first, you want to make sure your application is strong. And again, a strong application varies from person to person. It's just not a score. It's just not a research program. It's a combination of factors which vary according to your specialty and according to your program of choice. Okay? So you need to be able to make sure you're answering questions like why the specialty and why you should be chosen. In order to do that, you have to first overcome that internal imposter syndrome, that feeling or psychological phenomena where you feel like you're not worthy of the position. You need to be able to own it before anything else can be real for you, right? And then I think more than anything, we need to have a backup plan. As IMGs, when we're going to the match, we need to have more than one plan. Meaning, if plan A doesn't work, what do we do for plan B? And it doesn't have to be very different from your goal. A plan B could look like having a prelim application out if you're doing a surgical residency application. A plan B could be a transitional year application if you're doing another advanced specialty application. Those are just some things to consider. There's definitely ways to create a backup plan without necessarily creating a whole different application altogether, okay? So in summary, on creating a strong application or in creating a personal strategy, the key is mastering your personal story, showing enthusiasm for the unique programs, doing your research on the right programs for you, and then adding up with the usual requirements, your scores, your research, your USCE, and all those things, and then subsequently mastering your interviews and having a backup plan. And again, inside the IMG roadmap, I help you create a strong plan that is unique for your situation and that will help you position yourself as a competitive applicant. Because a competitive applicant is made, right? It's not born. It's you make yourself look competitive. So part 2 of our life is supposed to be about residency interview prep and just kind of getting an understanding of what the residency interview is about. I usually tell students once you get an interview invitation, they like what they see on paper. They like you as an individual. So at that point, you're not really there to prove your point as to like why they should review your application. They've already reviewed your application. So really personality comes into play. How you interact with the programs comes into play. How you speak of yourself comes into play. It's a mix of confidence, storytelling, and strategic preparation. So the way you respond to your questions in one program is not the same way you respond in another program. Confidence is super important because confidence is something that people can feel, they can see. It almost radiates out of you. But if you're dealing with imposter syndrome, you're dealing with fear and anxiety, that can rob your confidence away. And I always say confidence is not, it's not something that you inherently have, it's practice. The more you practice, the more confident you become. The more you do something, the more confident you become. And I always say courage precedes confidence. So you're not gonna have confidence just right off the bat. It's just having the courage to be there in that room and participating in that interview. So in order to master your interview, you need a mix of confidence, storytelling, and strategic preparation. We touched a little bit on confidence. Storytelling, what is that? Really about mastering your own personal story, tying it in with the key tenets of why me, why should you hire me, why would I be a good fit for your program, why do I like this specialty, right? Until you've mastered those parts of your story and you can explain your IMG story and you can give a compelling story of who you are, you're not going to win people over with your words. And your goal is to win them over with your words. So you want to make sure that you're able to tell your story in a way that makes people want to listen. They want to lean in. They want to know more. They want to see you as the hero of your story, of your life story, whatever that is for you. So I always tell people, interviews is about origin stories. And when I coach IMGs and we're sitting in a one-on-one and I'm going over interview prep with them, I help them formulate the origin story. I help them identify what is it about you that makes you interesting and unique. What is it about you as a family medicine applicant or an internal medicine applicant or an ER applicant that's different from the next person with the same credentials as you? So you need to be able to identify your origin story, like who you really are fundamentally. And to do that, you need to have reflected on yourself. And you need to have the confidence and the clarity to do so. And you need to have dealt with those thoughts, those automatic negative thoughts that come into our minds when we're in an interview, right? Is my answer lame? Do they think I'm bluffing? You need to have clarity about all those things first before you move forward. And then the second thing when you're interviewed is you want to show desire, right? Have you ever been on a date and the person you're on a date with is on their phone, doesn't really care that you're there, they're not really paying attention to you? Nobody likes that. But when you show enthusiasm, you research the program, you attend pre-interview socials, you're engaging, you're asking thoughtful questions. Programs love that. The fellow human beings that are sitting there with you, they absolutely love that. And sometimes some of us don't feel like we are very much social people. We feel like maybe we're introverts. But a lot of physicians are introverts too, but they still know how to socialize. So being an introvert is not an excuse to not be able to socialize, right? Third, speaking with confidence and clarity. We touched a little bit on that already. And showing emotional intelligence is super, super, super important. Because emotional intelligence is something that you can't quantify, but you can decipher when you're talking to someone, especially if you're a preceptor, an attending, a senior physician. You can kind of tell who has a certain level of emotional intelligence versus the other. And so being able to highlight things like teamwork, adaptability in your responses without using those words is key. Maybe citing examples, maybe again with storytelling. That's how you win your interview. And again, I'm just sharing this with you guys. If you want to be a part of my free webinar coming up in next week, it's not going to be on Instagram. It will be in a private platform. Just type in the chat right now the number 5 if you want to get more information on all these things I'm teaching you today. And you're like, Dr. Loom, this is just touching the surface, but I want more information. I want to know more about building my confidence, about being able to demonstrate all these skill sets that you're telling us we need to have, about creating a competitive application, about being able to showcase ourselves for the match in a way that we have a strategy that works for us. Type number 5 in the chat or down in the comments and we'll send you the link stat. So another thing with interview prep is you want to make sure that you have a strong opening and closing argument. So the opening argument is that elevator pitch. It's that what you say when you're first met with this new person, your initial reaction, your initial performance, right? But then more importantly, at the end of your interview, you need to be able to bring it all home. You need to like drive the nail home. It's like if you spend the whole entire interview and you didn't get a chance to really tell them how you felt about the program, maybe at the end, your closing statement should do that for you, right? So you want to be able to summarize, your experience that day with the program, what you got out of it, what you're anticipating after you leave the interview, what your anticipations are, what your dreams, your aspirations are, so they know where to meet you. Because if you're not telling them that, they're not going to know where to meet you or how to meet you where you're headed, right? And bonus tips, obviously maintaining eye contact, sending your thank you emails, preferably within the first 24 hours after your interview, dressing professionally, even if it's virtual. Usually I say from waist up, like right now, you may not know if I have pants on, nobody cares. But in your interview, the same thing. You want to make sure you have your suit or some kind of professional attire so that they feel like you are taking them seriously, right? I did an interview once and the IMG showed up in scrubs. And I get it. They were at work. But you should schedule your interviews with some more intelligence, right? Schedule your interviews when you know you have the time to step away, be in a suit or request a day off to really take your interview seriously. Because programs want to feel important. They want to feel also wanted and desired like you want to feel, okay? So I'm going to take some questions about strategy or interview. Let's see the question box here. Question box here, no questions yet. Someone requested to join. You can also come on live or you can ask in the box here. All right. I don't see any questions. That is weird. You guys just came to listen to me talk and have no questions for me. What if I told you everything here was not correct information? You should counteract that. You should ask. All right. So what are 3 things you see people doing that they shouldn't? Do you mean during interviews? I'm assuming during interviews. So I would say 3 key things that I've seen people do during interviews. Number 1 is not having an elevator pitch, like not having an origin story, well refined. Doesn't mean you have to have it verbatim to where you're like regurgitating something that you've practiced, but having your origin story hands down. Your origin story is who you are, where you're from, and why does it matter to the person interviewing you. That would be the first thing. The second thing I would say is not engaging in conversation. So what I mean by engaging is some of us wait to be asked the question, and we never think to ask the question back or to let the conversation flow so it's like two-way street. We just allow it to be a rapid fire session where that person is bombarding us with questions, but we never take it into a Q&A to conversation where it's you speak, I speak, you speak, I speak. And so when you psychologically, if you interact with a human being and you do not create conversation, that person can leave the conversation feeling like there was a lack of interest on your part, which is completely incorrect because you don't have a lack of interest, right? You are interested. However, if the perception is that you do not engage them in conversation, it could be perceived as such. And then the last mistake I would say that I see oftentimes is not selling yourself. A lot of IMGs, we wait until we're asked to tell about ourselves or to sell our great attributes. You don't have to do that. You can tell about yourself even before you're asked. You can think of your attributes, think of your positive points, think of the things that people compliment you about. Speak about those things. Don't wait until they ask you, so what is it about you that, are your strengths? Share your strengths even if they don't come up. You need to be able to sell yourself, right? But you need to have confidence to be able to do that. Some people don't feel comfortable doing that. Um, Lovely Linny asks, can you choose your interview date? Yes, you can. They usually give you a couple of dates to choose from. Um, yes, so they give you options. They'll give you like 3 or 4 dates, and you pick what works best for you. But usually, most students would request the day off if they were already scheduled for something else. So, if you were in medical school on a rotation, it's very acceptable to request that day off for your interview. P. Natanga says, as a Caribbean student about to start my clinical rotations, what are some of the things you advise to do in order to build your profile properly for residency program in surgery? I love it. So I would say you need to spend as much time with surgeons as possible, meaning you should probably start looking out to setting your own elective rotations in surgery and surgical subspecialties. I think you need to find mentorship within surgery associations. So, like American College of Surgery, you should be probably a student member. You probably want to be able to use that membership to find mentorship within the organization if you can. But also, in addition to that, the more time you spend in the OR with surgeons, that's really what gets you noticed. And it's not just sitting there being a fly on the wall, it's knowing your anatomy, it's participating in surgery, it's opting to do little and small things, retracting, it's opting to close, opting to put staples, it's opting to scrub, whatever it is, and always asking for feedback on your performance as well so you can improve as you go along. You want to also be very proactive with the surgical aspiration. You can't just sit around. It's a very cutthroat world out here. You're going to be rotating with students from all across the world. You need to show yourself worthy, right? And in surgery, we all know that that's a specialty where there's a lot of that going on. Um, so Dr. Danny says you mentioned we should have prepared a year in advance as well to get ready for within the next few months. It is 100% possible, Dr. Danny, and I can help you with that. If you are interested, just type in 5 or come to the webinar, and I'll show you exactly how I can help you achieve that over the next few months. Something I've done time and time again. You can check out this website. I'm going to put it here in the chat so that you have access to it for you and anyone else who is interested to know how exactly I help people prepare for residency application, even in a few months. But we have to start now. We have to start by April, right? So we're not gonna wait until later. So I'm just gonna put this down here. I put the link down here. Let's see if I can pin it. Okay, there we go. So you can check that out, and it will give you some information as to how I can help you. Does this mean that if you want to do pediatrics, you have to get 3 LORs from pediatricians? Not necessarily, but you definitely want to get a minimum of 1 to 2 from a pediatrician. You can get another one from an internist, a family physician, but you definitely want to make sure there's a pediatrics letter in that mix. Probably, I would say a majority peds, minority other specialties, but variety is the spice of life, right? Residency programs know that you are rotating through different specialties. They also want to hear the opinion of other specialties. They just don't only want to hear that one specialty for peds, at least I would say. So the strategist to getting research positions, you have to go and watch yesterday's live to get that information. Again, you can join us in the webinar by typing 5 and we'll give you more information. Our live is going to end here in 3 minutes. How do I sell myself without seeming egotistical? You mentioned selling yourself to them before they ask. It seems weird. What's a good example of an answer to sleeping my strengths without being asked? So let's say you were in an interview scenario and you guys were talking about, tell me about a time when you had a difficult case, right? That's the question they ask you. That's a behavioral question. In that scenario, you would think about a difficult case that you experienced, right? Maybe I was a third year medical student on the wards and, patient crashed in front of me. I had to activate the code and start CPR. It was my first time doing this, right? But I think that beyond that, instead of just saying that was a difficult case, you can take it one step further by saying, based on that experience, I learned a few things about being in emergency scenarios, which I've implemented ever since that day. And then you list 3 other things that you do now differently based on emergency scenarios that you've been in and what you're taking with you in your future, right? So because of that scenario, it wasn't just so much that I intervened, but based on the feedback I got, ever since then, I know how to do this, this, and this, right? I've been recommended or commended by my attending for how I responded to that case, and they let me be the one to tutor the other students on responding to emergencies. I did a presentation on it in front of my peers afterwards. I was able to give a talk in front of my classroom. That's you selling yourself as a leader. That's you selling yourself as someone who did not just respond to a difficult scenario, but how you took it one step further and taught other people. Do you get my point, Mary? Um, oh yeah, so Dr. Danny, this is from Lifeline Threads. They sent it to me today to wear for this live. So, I'm sharing it with the world. Volunteering for shelters can also help my unique story. So it depends on how you pose it. Yes, volunteering is a good thing to do. It's a humanly positive thing to do. Anyone who's volunteering, what do you think about them? You think they're altruistic. You think they're enthusiastic about life. You think they love to help others, especially those in need. Those are good traits. So it's not just about volunteering, but you see how you take that volunteering and you put it in your story? You show yourself as what? An altruistic person, a person who gives, a person who cares about the underserved. That's what makes you stand out, because you volunteered. So it's just not like, hey, I did a volunteer experience at the homeless shelter. No, it's I did a volunteer experience at the homeless shelter, but it really taught me the benefit of putting others before myself, or serving a community that's less privileged, or being altruistic. Do you see how that works as a unique storyline without it being volunteering, right? All right. So guys, thanks for joining. Hey, Camille. Camille is one of our IMG roadmappers. And our IMG roadmap course is coming back for the last time this year, this spring. And so definitely stay tuned. Come to the webinar if you want to learn more. Type in the number 5, and I have this link here for some inspo for you. Go read through those are all testimonials from IMGs that would tell you that the best time to start your preparation was yesterday, and what you can do and how I can help you create that match strategy that makes you stand out. Will I see you at the webinar? Let me know. Will I see you at the webinar? Type your 5 down below, and I'll see you at the webinar. I don't see any other questions here. I don't think I missed any questions. All right. Yeah, I didn't miss any questions there. Awesome. So just drop us a 5 and we will get you those links so you can join us. And I'll see you guys next time. So I'll see you guys tomorrow, same time, same place, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be on for 15 minutes. Can't wait to see you there. Bye for now. Well, hello, friends. IMGs, welcome to another live with me here. Congratulations to all who matched. This is a really, really happy day for a lot of us who desire to match, had worked really hard on the cycle, and did not get the results that they wanted. So it's usually bittersweet for me as well, because I hear from my mentees and students and doctors who've taken my program from the last year who have matched today. And it's so relieving to read their messages. I had one, she's been working really hard, matched into preliminary surgery, another categorical surgery match, pediatrics for an IMG who's been out for a few years. So many, great success stories that make you feel good and make you feel hopeful, right, for others and for the future. However, in the midst of that, there's also a lot of sadness for those who did not get what they thought was coming for them. And if you're that person who did not receive a positive report today, I want to speak to you first. The match does not define whether or not you will become a physician. And listen to me and listen real good. The match does not define your chances of one day being the physician that you dreamed of being, or taking care of patients, or saving people's lives, whether it's in a hospital, in a clinic, in an operating room. The match does not define that. In a moment of time, it may look as if you do not stand a chance because of the fact that today you're finding out you're unmatched. However, a lot can change between now and, for example, Friday, where you soap into a program. That's one option. Or you match into a program outside of the match. That's another option. Or you get into a program of your choice the following cycle. All of these are possibilities. I like to think of the match as, I always think of it this way. I think of it like being at a bus stop. And the bus shows up and there are 40 seats on the bus. Yet there are 60 of us standing at the bus stop. And according to the rules and regulations, you can't have anybody standing up in the bus. And so we all have to be in a position where we'll get to our destination, but first 40 people are going to go and then they'll come back for the next 20 people. That is the best way I can envision the match. Because the fact that you don't get on the bus today on Monday doesn't mean you'll never get on the bus ever. But in the moment of not having received that congratulations, I've matched email, it's so easy, right, to think about yourself becoming that person that never gets on the bus at all and gets left behind. So what can you do now? I think the first thing is to focus on what you're thinking about. I know it's hard because in the initial phase, you need to grieve the loss because you've invested so much time, energy, finances, mental energy, seeking out mentors, rotations, USMLE, and all of this just to be left hanging. And I realized how hard that could be. But it doesn't have to be that way forever, is what I'm saying. And it will not be that way forever. Perseverance is so important in this process when you're going through the matches and IMG. Being able to look forward to the future with hope. Being able to envision that this is still possible for you, even if you don't get the result that you want to see, right? So let's see if I could just share with you a few really positive things that I think would encourage you, right? That dropped in my inbox today. And I'm doing this because I want to encourage you to not lose hope, right? Like, do not lose hope. This is just a little dent in the way. You will become and can become and have the potential to become that doctor that you want to be, that doctor that you dreamed of being, or that doctor that you already are. Some of you are already even physicians, and you don't need necessarily to become a physician, but you want to do it in the United States and you want to get residency here. It is possible. I've coached many students time and time again who've been through the match 1, 2, or 3 times before, and they go through it under my guidance and things shift, right? Primarily because it can change how they think about things. So I just want to congratulate a few people who may or may not be live today with us. This is Dr. Thomason. She sent me this message today, match general surgery prelim. This is an IMG, right? This is someone who has a visa requirement. This is someone who is just like you, who's able to get these opportunities that you're seeking, right? So don't ever feel like you don't have what it takes, because this person did it, you can certainly do it. I got another sweet message today from Dr. Rolanda, which, she's so happy she's matched. We'll find out where she's going to go. But over the last year, she says, all your encouragement, your guidance has been very, very helpful for me. And I'm really just excited to share these messages with you, because I want you to see IMGs who are matching into what you want, and to realize that it is 100% possible for you as well, right? Let's see. This is from, Oreoloa. She didn't match the prior year. And so this is her second cycle going through. And she's saying, hey, I matched. Nothing is impossible with God. So I just wanted to show you these examples, because I feel like sometimes it's so easy to get bogged down in what you're seeing right now and feel like this is going to be your future. But it doesn't have to stay that way. That's my key takeaway for you. It doesn't have to stay that way. Someone else sent me this message, I think is Vidya. Happy to share that she matched, wants to help inspire others. I'm hoping to have her on the podcast or on a live soon. She wants to share a story because she did have red flags. Those same red flags that scare all of us. Those same red flags that make us feel like we don't have what it takes to get to where we want to go. These are doctors and students who had those same red flags that are making it into residency. So don't feel like because it didn't work out for you today, Monday, Friday's done, right? No, there's still an option. The first thing you want to do is get on the SOAP if you haven't already. You want to maximize applying to all 45 programs. All 45 programs. You don't want to miss out on any one of them. You also want to make sure, if you haven't already, I usually prefer in the SOAP to stick to one specialty so you can give it your 100%. Because in the main match, some of you do one or two specialties, like a primary and a backup. But for the SOAP, you only have 45. So you want to make sure that you give it your 100%. I usually say always have a editable personal statement ready, which if you applied today for the SOAP, hopefully you sent that already. If you did not, go ahead and work on that tonight so you can go through the second wave of revisions, right? As you know, you send your applications in, they're going to revise them, and they'll start giving out interviews, rolling out until Thursday. So the most you can do right now is submit an application. And if you want to submit an application, focus on one specialty, give it all your 45, and absolutely also consider obviously not violating any rules, like speaking to people at the program outside the match or anything that makes them feel a little bit finicky about application. But leaning on the support of your friends, leaning on the support of your colleagues is really, really helpful, especially those who've matched. A lot of times people know each other and things like that, but beyond that, leaning on the support of one another, I think is super, super important. Yeah, so Logi to it asked if I have mentees who attended St. George's. Absolutely, yes. Every year in my program, I've had students that have attended St. George's, actually one of the most popular Caribbean medical schools. I'm a Caribbean medical school grad myself, so I always tend to attract a lot of Caribbean medical schools in my Caribbean medical students in my program, I should say. So yes, absolutely, we have, and SGU has a pretty good match rate compared to the smaller Caribbean medical schools. So I know for sure that definitely is an advantage usually for SGU applicants in general. So I want to invite you guys to a program that I'm going to be running in April 3 to 5. If you are going to be applying in 2025, please type the number 5 in the chat. I'm sorry, 2026. If you're applying in 2026, type the number 5 in the chat, because I want to invite you to a special webinar I'm going to be hosting. And in that webinar, I want to walk you through how exactly you can get a blueprint for the next cycle, okay? So what that would look like is we're going to be dealing with how you're going to overcome that mindset of negativity, that mindset of fear, the things that are holding you back, your red flags, your step 1, step 2, step 3, or lack thereof, your inability to find appropriate networking opportunities, inability to get mentorship and guidance as you prepare. One of the biggest mistakes I get from every year is people wait until September to reach out to me to help them with the applications. No, it doesn't work like that. If you want to have results that make it different, you're going to have to start to take action now to make a difference in the future. So what that means is, if you're going to apply in September of 2025 for a 26 match, I want you to start preparing now, because you're not going to change your mindset and overcome imposter syndrome and begin to see yourself as someone who can network or even network efficiently in a month. You need 3, 4, 5, 6 months to build relationships, because some of us are in this delusion land that networking is just means we're going to slide into someone's DMs or send an email and they're just going to open up the gates, and welcome us home. Doesn't always work like that. A lot of times it takes nurturing relationships. It takes attending conferences, knowing what to say, how to say it, what to do, when to do it, and how not to really indeed sabotage your own success, right? Like putting your own foot in your own mouth. So in this webinar, I'll be showing you how I can hold your hand, how I can guide you through. We'll start off with the mindset portion. How do I shift from all these negative things I hear about being an IMG? I hear about maybe not having the opportunity for clinicals. I hear about not having networking capability opportunities. I don't know what research I'm going to write. I don't know who is going to write my LORs. I don't know where to start, right? I'm overwhelmed. Or maybe this is even my second or third attempt at this. And I don't want to go at it alone, because I've gone at it alone 2, 3 times already, and it has not yielded the result that I want, okay? If that is the case, I want you to join me. 2026 Match Success Blueprint. I'll show you how you're going to craft an application that attracts your dream program. If you want to be a part of that, you have to type in 5 in the comments, or send me a DM, or send my other page, IMG Roadmap, a DM, and we'll get you the link to the webinar. You can register now. The webinar starts April 3rd to April 5th, and it's going to be on a separate platform, not on Instagram Live, because we're going to go deeper. We're going to go into the nitty-gritty. We're going to go behind the scenes. We're going to dissect things, and we're going to address your concerns, right? Face value. We're going to take it not just from what everybody else's experience is, but what your experience is, and how we can work together to help you position yourself for that. Because as someone who's an IMG, I know where the shoe hurts, okay? I've been there, done that. I've done the chief resident thing. I've done residency. I've done fellowship. I know exactly where our pitfalls lie. I know exactly where we fall short. And a lot of times you may think it's one thing. You may think it's like, well, if I could just get my more research, that's it. But by the time I'm done working with you, you'll realize research was just a box you were trying to check. And there's a lot more to you than just another research paper, right? Or you realize that your score doesn't get to define your entire life future moving forward. Yeah, if it's a great score, please let's use it to showcase ourselves, to make ourselves known, as an open liner in our emails, whatever the case may be. I'm all for it. However, for those of us who are on the fence, don't have exactly 100% of everything that we think we need to have, this is going to be for you. So I want you to come join me during that webinar, and I'll show you exactly how you can do all this without the overwhelm. We're going to take the stress away, try to make this process as easy and seamless as it can be. It's not easy. If it was easy, today would be a happy day for everybody all the time, right? But we know it's usually 50-50, or maybe I should say 60-40, knowing our prior match rate in the previous years. I can't actually wait to see what the data would be for this year, because every year the data gives us more and more insight. So if you have any questions as an IMG, I want you to drop that in the chat here. Let's see, I have one request to be live, but I don't think Mary really wants to be live. Mary, is that your intention? I don't believe so. But if you have a question, you can drop it. But I really want to encourage you guys, because in this webinar, we're going to be going over exactly my 7-step formula on the match. We're going to be going over exactly my networking strategy, all the things I talked to you over the last 4 days, whether that's strategy, whether that's, the great equalizer, the USMLE, whether that is overcoming what's between our ears, because the biggest challenge a lot of us have is what's between our ears, our brain, our thinking, our mindset, and getting out of that dump, getting out of that gutter, and getting ourselves to begin to take action on what really matters, right? You don't want to be a procrastinator. I'm going to do this in the future and putting things off. No, you don't want to be that person. You want to be consistent. You want to be able to do things step by step, follow a rubric, and get the success that you want, okay? So Dr. Claire says she's in Nigeria. Can I get a mentorship or network from here? Most of my colleagues that match has someone, a doctor there. So in my program, I've had students in Nigeria who have taken my program from Nigeria and matched from Nigeria. So I know it's possible. However, you're going to have to leverage other platforms like telemedicine rotations. You're going to have to leverage online networks, whether that's Med Twitter and online wings of your medical association of choice. So it's definitely possible. Is it challenging? Yes. Is it impossible? No. Okay. It's something that I've done with other students as well in the past. So it definitely works. Come join me and I'll give you more information as to how we can help you through that, even from a foreign country. And that's not only for anyone in Nigeria. I mean, we've had students in my program from West Africa, from Asia, so Pakistan, India. I've had people joining from India, Pakistan. I've had students joining from Europe. So no matter where you are in the world, South America as well. So no matter where you are in the world, this is applicable for you, and you can utilize this information. You can network. You can do the same, not exactly blueprint like someone who's in person, but there's an alternative that will offer you on how you can leverage this online networks. So type 5 in the chat and you get the link to my webinar. And I can't wait to see you guys on April 3 to 5 is when it's going to run. And I'm going to keep sharing it on my page so you know, and you can invite your friends, other IMGs that you know would benefit from this, because you do not want to miss this. Again, congrats to all who matched. So happy for you guys. In my program, we're having our match party this Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have every year for the last few years, I've always held a match party. And I'm so excited to do it again this year. It's a private party online for those of us who are already members of the IMG Roadmap program, online course and coaching program. So my roadmappers know I'm going to see you guys on Sunday at 7 p.m. All right. For now, drop 5 in the chat if you want to be there, if you want to join me in this private webinar that I'm talking about, April 3 to 5, on the blueprint that attracts your dream program without the overwhelm. Drop a 5 in the chat, and I'll see you on April 3rd. I mean, I'm still going to be here. We're still going to be here. We're still going to be chatting with you on Instagram, but I'll see you soon. Oh, soap. Okay. So yes. So we can talk about the soap really quickly. Let me pull up, let me see if I can share screen on a phone. So we could talk about the soap. Okay, Mary. So if you're applying next cycle, you definitely want to be in the webinar. Have you registered for it? Let me know. Did you register for it? So SOAP is called the Supplemental Offer and Acceptance Program, which basically means when residents or students apply or doctors apply into residency, the goal is to fill all the positions, right? Meaning everybody's supposed to match. But the way the match works is the match is an algorithm. It's a computerized algorithm. So what that means is, let's say, I think last year there were about 34,000 positions in the match, so 34,000 jobs. However, there were more than 34,000 applicants for all these jobs in all different specialties. So the way the algorithm works is, its goal is to say, okay, there are 34,000 jobs available, and there are 36,000 applicants for all specialties all across the world into US residency. So the algorithm works to say, I'll take each individual rank order list and try to make sure that that applicant gets a position in residency. It's a computer. So the applicant goes to interviews across the world or interviews across the country, comes back home after the end of the cycle and creates a rank order list which says from 1 to X, maybe to 10, these are the programs I want to go, these are the programs I want to attend. The program also has its own list from 1 to 20 or 30 or 40. These are the students I want to rank, that I want to work with, I want to train next year. However, because it's an algorithm, it's a computer, not all 32,000 programs get filled on match day, right? On day one, Monday. Match day is technically on Friday this week. So the match is a long week process. So the way the SOAP works is, it says, anyone whom the computer did not give a position to, maybe because of how the rank order list appeared, maybe because of a computer algorithm glitch issue, maybe because of their preferences for where they interviewed, anyone who is left without a job on match day can come back into the cycle and apply for the open positions that exist. Okay? So what that looks like is, let's say there were 32,000 positions to start with and 36,000 applicants. Maybe on Monday, this is hypothetical numbers, okay? On Monday, let's say there are 30,000 jobs have been filled. So there are 2,000 empty positions across all specialties. Those positions now become available through the NRMP, and you can see them as unfilled spots. So the supplemental means it's a supplement, it's an addition to the primary match that we all went through throughout the year. The offer, meaning because it's a supplement, any unfilled position that is available can offer you a job, okay? The acceptance portion, which is the spelling out the mnemonic SOAP, the acceptance portion is the student or resident or doctor who chooses to accept the offer from the program. And obviously P's program. So SOAP is Supplemental Offer and Acceptance Program. So on Monday, today, let's say all those who found out they matched, they're kind of in the safe, but they don't know where they're going to go yet. They just know they've matched. Now, between Monday, today, 11 a.m., and Thursday, the unmatched applicants can apply again through the same platform that they used to apply into residency, but they can only apply to places that did not fill all their spots. And only them can see the list of where there are unfilled positions. It's illegal to share that list online or with people. It's not recommended. They say do not do that. It's against the rules. So today, I can't tell you where there are unfilled positions, but someone who did not match can see that list on their platform. Hey, Tommy Sin, I see you in the room. I was just bragging on you a few moments ago. I actually shared your match story into prelim surgery. So congrats. Tommy Sin is one of my students. Okay. So anyhow, I digress. So SOAP basically means if you did not match, you can now come in unfilled positions and apply only for what's available. You can't apply for what has already been taken. You'll interview between tomorrow and Thursday, and you'll be given an offer in that time frame. But there's a limit. You only get to apply to 45 programs. You can't apply to more. So you have to really tailor and say, okay, amongst all these unfilled spots, which 45 am I going for? All right. So Mary, you're saying, based on your advice, if I do ortho and it's filled up, I cannot apply into it. If all ortho positions are gone, there's no unfilled spots for you to apply into. You could wait and apply into ortho spots that come from new programs, like programs that open up later in the cycle. But my IM and FM programs are available. Then I can apply into it. Right, you can. However, do you want to do those things, or are you just applying into it because you just want to get a job? That's a mindset I want you to avoid, is just jumping into the next thing because it's available when it's not truly what you're passionate about. Like, I really, without knowing the nuances, I would caution just applying into whatever because it's there. Because there's going to be someone else who has prepared an IM or an FM application who is ready for it. You get my point? Because if you send an orthopedic application to a family medicine, internal medicine program, you're not going to get an interview. At least if everybody can see that this is a orthopedic personal statement or a very heavily laden orthopedic application. Yeah, it may be great for orthopedic surgery, but is it great for the internal medicine program? You have to be program specific in when you're creating your application, which is another big mistake a lot of us IMGs make, is we just write this like generic, open-ended application and send it out and hope for the best. No, it doesn't work that way. Your application needs to be targeted. It needs to be specific. Almost like, you remember specificity and sensitivity? Like, it needs to speak to somebody, to one person. Can't speak to everybody. The application cannot be all over the place. Okay? So that's something to avoid. So if you're interested in sports medicine, yes, through family medicine, you can do a sports medicine fellowship, which is a medical pathway. Orthopedic sports is a whole different pathway. It's a surgical pathway. So they're not in the same bucket. Just kind of putting that out there. Yes, if you are a family physician, work in a sports medicine clinic, are you going to be seeing patients with orthopedists? Well, you'll be seeing the patients that don't require surgery. You may be seeing the patients that just require knee injections or things like that. But you're not going to be equated to an orthopedist with sports medicine specialty. That person is doing ACL repairs, MCL repairs, shoulder replacements, whatever else that people do to hurt themselves in sports. Do you get my point? So I want you guys to be very cautious about that. Some IMGs, actually, sometimes we don't match, not because we are not good enough, but it's because what we present doesn't speak to who we're speaking to. It's like sending a letter to someone, but you're addressing it to somebody completely different. That it doesn't make any sense, right? It wouldn't make any sense to that person when they're reading the contents of your letter. So why do that? Now, again, drop in the comments number 5. If you haven't already, to join my webinar, April 3 to 5. Sign up now so that you can get your seat secure. And we'll be going into all of this. What is application strategy? How's your application? How do you create an application that speaks to a program specialty specifically? How do you do that? It is possible. How do you even speak to a program directly in your application? It is possible. So we're going to talk about all of that in that webinar and so much more. All right. Am I going to see you there? Let me know in the chat. If not, I'll see you guys again on live one of these evenings. But this week on my page, you're going to see a lot of success stories. You're going to see a lot of motivation and inspiration. And if I'm sharing this, it's not to make you feel bad. It's to actually give you a little bit of fire. So you know, like, this is possible for you as well. So I'll see you guys again. Drop a 5 in the chat and you'll get a link to sign up. So for the SOAP, are people able to apply to any of the empty programs? Yes, you can apply to any of the unfilled spots. But it doesn't guarantee that you'll get interviewed by the unfilled spots, right? You just apply and they will let you know if they call you for interview. They usually send interviews privately or, over the next 48 hours, people get interviewed. And by Thursday, most people know if they're going somewhere or not, because Friday is the final match day, where you know where exactly you're gonna go if you match today. All right, see y'all. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.